Chapter 749. After rummaging around, Feng Manyun finally pulled out a bottle from her cloth bag. She clutched it tightly in her hand and bellowed while panting heavily, I want all of them to die for me. Die, die, die. Ah! Someone would eventually have to suffer all the humiliation, grievances, and suffering she had to endure. Someone would have to pay a heavy price for this. Ah! Wrapped in the bedding, Feng Manyun convulsed and trembled uncontrollably. Her lips were snow-white, and her gaze was fixated on the bleak scenery outside the window that was constantly moving. My Chiao's section break, SSS. Slivers of wriggling black shadows crawled up the window lattice. SSS. The white snakelet inside Arbor's waist pocket suddenly stuck out its small head, and its watery eyes vigilantly surveyed its surroundings. SSS. The small black snakes that had burrowed into the room were firmly bound by the binding talisman matrix. No matter how they wriggled, they couldn't break free from the binding talisman matrix. The white snakelet's head was raised high, and its pair of watery eyes turned icy as it stared at those black snakes that had burrowed into the room. Suddenly, a black figure burrowed out from the floor of the room. This person seemed to have burrowed out of thin air, and his figure was abnormally short. If Arbor could open his eyes right now, he would definitely discover that this person looked exactly the same as the pygmy who had tamed the poison-tailed butterflies that she had killed back then. He had a triangular head, different-sized eyes, and one eyebrow was high while the other was low. It was an extremely irritating sight. The pygmy's head and hands were covered with many wriggling small black snakes, and he was even emitting snake hissing sounds to lure the snakes to attack the talisman matrix. He was a snake exorcist, and just like his brother who tamed the poison-tailed butterflies, he also had the ability to drive and tame snakes. Actually, these pygmies were triplets who had followed Shuntian Prefecture's Luigi for many years. The one Arbor had killed in the abandoned house back then was the youngest among them, their third brother. This dwarf was the second of the three brothers. The second dwarf's ability was to drive snakes, and he also had a special ability to drill into the ground. The triplets had their own telepathy. The moment their third brother died, the eldest and the second dwarf received their brother's miserable state before he died without using any special external objects such as life lanterns. They also saw their enemy's face clearly. However, Shuntian Prefecture had been suppressed by Luigi during this period of time, so they weren't able to leave Bailon fortifications to avenge their brothers. However, they had already engraved the appearance of the little demoness who had killed their brother in their hearts. Furthermore, as long as this little demon girl appeared within a radius of 100 miles, the two brothers would be able to sense her exact location. As a result, the moment Arbor set foot in Bailon City, the first and second pygmy triplets had actually already sensed this little witch's existence. They had been secretly observing the situation and had only made their move now. What he wanted was this perfect opportunity. The little demoness was actually in closed-door cultivation to advance her cultivation. The heavens were truly helping him. This time, the little demoness aura would be in disorder and she would suffer from chi deviation, even exploding and dying. It wasn't that Arbor, who was currently at the critical juncture of her advancement, didn't know what was happening in the outside world, but she definitely couldn't be distracted. At the same time, the group of people who were standing guard outside her room, led by hidden guard Lightning, had already sensed that something was amiss. With a whistle, everyone drilled out from their hiding places and pounced over with grave expressions, dealing with the snakes that were continuously flooding into the room as quickly as possible. Chapter 750. Lightning and the others did not dare to make too much noise, fearing that they would disturb the crown princess who was cultivating in seclusion. However, the number of snakes was too dense. Lightning made a gesture and everyone spread out, quickly clearing the snakes. Hiss. A fierce look emerged from the white snake's cute eyes as it coldly stared at second dwarf brother's figure that had emerged from the corner. Second dwarf brother moved his feet, a cold smile on his lips as he approached the binding glyph array step by step. Bang! His figure suddenly burrowed into the ground under the watchful eyes of the little white snake. The little white snake was on full alert. In its pair of round eyes, there was already a substantial murderous intent condensing. Whoosh! Second dwarf brother's figure suddenly appeared within the second layer of the mystic guiding glyph array that Arbor had set up. At this moment, the mystic guiding glyph array had already lost its effectiveness due to the passage of time. Second dwarf brother used his special ability to directly avoid coming into contact with the binding glyph array and appeared beside Arbor. His pair of cold old eyes were filled with killing intent. He raised the heavy hammer in his right hand high up and was about to smash it down on Arbor's little head. Second dwarf brother cracked open his mouth and laughed. "Little bastard, let's see if you still have half a life left if you don't die this time." Ha 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 ha. Outside, lightning leaped into the air and let out a shrill cry. With a whistle, hundreds of black shadows gathered from all directions and surged toward the room. Several hidden guards had already heard the noise from inside the room. One by one, they flipped over the window and entered the room. Only to hear a hiss, roar coming from inside the house. The roar rolled, and a huge snake as thick as 10 people hugging it opened its huge mouth, swallowing and spitting out black fog. With a boom sound, it penetrated through the roof. Covered in black mist, the snake opened its mouth wide and stared coldly at second dwarf brother who was rapidly retreating with a face full of fear. Hiss! The huge snake roared angrily and swayed its huge tail. Its huge mouth was right next to second dwarf brother's frightened face. In the blink of an eye, he had bitten the upper half of the dwarf brother's body into his mouth with a crunch. As he swung his body around, the messy internal organs fell out and scattered all over the ground. The thick body of the snake was shrouded in darkness. It spiraled through the roof and crashed into a towering tree on the opposite side. Half of the tree withered from the impact. With a series of creaking sounds, the tree broke in half. The upper half of the thick tree trunk came crashing down with a terrifying sound of wind and whistling. All the secret guards in the courtyard were so shocked that they hurriedly jumped onto the eaves. Crunch, 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 crunch. A terrifying grinding sound came from the snake's mouth. Half of second dwarf brother's body was swallowed by the snake's huge mouth, and then it spat it out in disdain. Pieces of flesh fell to the ground, and blood dripped down, as if it was raining blood. All the secret guards looked up in shock at the giant snake that had suddenly emerged from the crown princess room. Oh my god! What level of mystic beast was this? How could it be so violent and terrifying? Hiss! The huge snake spat out its tongue angrily. Its long tongue flung out and directly razed the surrounding trees to the ground. Half of the houses had collapsed. Everyone in the city lord's manor was shocked by this huge noise. What the hell is going on? All the masters and servants in the city lord's manor rushed out of their rooms. Chapter 751. When they looked up, they saw the giant snake that had drilled its way out of the roof. The snake's head was held high above the eaves, and its enormous body was coiling in circles. Even though Lin Yongyi was experienced and knowledgeable, he couldn't help but be speechless at this moment. Hiss! The giant snake spat out a poisonous mist from its mouth. All of the frightened and writhing little snakes were sent flying by this cold wind. Hiss! The giant snake once again let out a terrifying roar, shaking some of the shadow guards who were closer to it. The blood in their hearts surged, and they couldn't help but bleed from the corners of their mouths. The giant snake's coiled body slithered down from the eaves, shrinking inch by inch until it finally shrunk to the white snakelet's original tiny size. With a plop, it limply landed on Xiao Mu's knees. The crown prince rushed over after hearing the news, burning with anxiety. At a glance, he saw that more than half of the wing where Jojo was in had collapsed. His heart began to clench tightly. Jojo! Prince Mo hurriedly ran into the wing, but was shocked to find that his baby's body was wrapped in a patch of emerald green vines. In front of his eyes, she was gradually becoming transparent inch by inch, as if she was about to disappear. Jojo. Mo Lien rushed forward in a panic, wanting to grab her little hand, but her wrist was entangled by several green vines. Master is fine. Relax and cooperate with me. I'll drag you in. Jojo shouted. Right now, it couldn't care too much. It could only waste some of its life force to drag Prince Mo into Paradise Planet first. Mo Lien's heart stirred slightly. Her fingers slid and wrapped around Arbor's somewhat cold fingertips. Suddenly, her vision blurred. When she looked again, she was already in a beautiful paradise. In front of her was a towering tree. It was actually a terrifyingly tall peach tree. Mo Lien had never seen such a mutated peach tree that was so tall that it looked like it could pierce through the sky. The peach trees were laden with fruits. Each peach was as big as a wash basin. This was simply too exaggerated. The vines retreated from his hand, and Mo Lien hurriedly reached out to hold Arbor, who had collapsed and was breathing unsteadily. Jojo, Jojo. Your Highness, don't worry. Master is fine. Please help her sit down and let her continue to absorb the mystic energy here. The little treant hopped over and directed Mo Lien to move Arbor to the tree so that she could continue to meditate. Little water child used water to circle a large pile of magnetite and ran over, piling them up beside Arbor's legs. It's all right now. Let Master continue to absorb the mystic energy. She's about to break through. The little treant wiped its sweat, and only then did it have the time to run over to observe the little white snake's condition. Mo Lien looked at Arbor for a while. Seeing that her breathing was gradually stabilizing, she couldn't help but sigh in relief. It's fine, it's fine. Chocho hopped around and directed the other little treants to move the little white snake to the side to rest. The little white snake suddenly transformed and erupted. She should just be exhausted right now. She'll be fine after some rest. You guys. Prince Mo looked at the little treants in shock. His gaze then swept past the little water child and the little chick. Chocho drooped its head, looking completely exhausted. I also have to go rest. Dragging you in just now was really too tiring. Why don't you send a message to your subordinates first and tell them not to worry? I'll wait for Master to wake up and have her tell you herself. Chocho exhaled with an ah and dragged its tired little steps, falling on its back beside Arbor. Chapter 752. This is the paradise, right? Mo Lien muttered to herself. She couldn't help but stroll around Paradise Planet. Although she knew that the heart of paradise had been refined into a mystic domain by Jojo for her own use, she truly didn't know that this little fellow was so resourceful that she could actually merge this mystic domain into her own body. Could it be that she had disappeared for more than 2 years in this place? A thought flashed through Mo Lien's mind. After strolling for a short while, she saw that all of the mystic energy in Paradise Planet was surging toward Arbor, forming a terrifying mystic energy nebula that condensed above Darling Qiao's head. Mo Lien hurriedly strolled back to Arbor's side and saw that the little water child was earnestly moving piece after piece of mystic stone into Arbor's hands, allowing her to absorb and use them on her own. His darling was indeed formidable. She needed such a vast amount of mystic energy just to break through to level 11 mystic cultivation. The more mystic energy consumed during the breakthrough, the more stable and solid the realm after the breakthrough. And just now, she had already cleanly absorbed all of the mystic energy in the vicinity of the city lord's estate within a radius of 50 kilometers in the outside world for about a day. This still wasn't enough. Mo Lien's heart stirred. She stood in front of Arbor, and with a slight movement of her fingers, a thick mystic energy was drawn out of her body and endlessly channeled into Arbor's body. The small tree Chocho, who was lying on the side like a corpse, suddenly moved and exclaimed in its heart, "The Crown Prince's mystic energy is very thick and pure. With his assistance, Little Master's breakthrough this time will definitely be smoother even though there will be some twists and turns." About 2 hours later, Arbor's consciousness gradually became clearer. She used her spiritual awareness to observe her body and saw that the two branch meridians had already undergone continuous training and were now about the same width as the main meridians. She successfully entered the cultivation of the fourth layer of the Spirit Division Record's Soul Chapter and opened the third branch meridian. The fourth layer of the Soul Chapter mainly cultivated the mystic energy in the two branch meridians and the main meridians as one wished, ensuring that the mystic energy in the main meridians was endless and continuous. With this kind of cultivation method, it was equivalent to using the vast and mighty profound energy stored in 3 profound veins to fight against one person. Naturally, the chances of winning would be much higher. The current mystic domain realm was already 2 inches larger than its olive-sized appearance from before. The profound energy from the 2 branch veins and the 1 main vein made a few rounds in the profound veins before the excess profound energy returned to the profound ruins. The mystic domain realm was entangled by the little tree's vines. After absorbing the remaining mystic energy, it was gradually buried into the little tree's roots, disappearing without a trace. When normal mystic cultivators fought, they would use the mystic energy surging in their mystic veins. The mystic domain was equivalent to a replenishment area. If he could be like Arbor and absorb profound energy with the profound domain talisman array, then when fighting, the profound domain realm would be able to continuously absorb profound energy from the outside world. Naturally, the duration of the battle would be extended. If the most fundamental profound energy stored in the profound domain was also completely exhausted in battle, then the situation they faced would be quite dangerous. After all, the speed at which mystic cultivators recovered mystic energy was not fast. If the mystic domain was exhausted and damaged, the mystic veins and even the mystic domain realm were damaged, treatment would become very troublesome. Unless you had some miraculous elixir that could rapidly recover your mystic energy, or you were like those people from large sects who carried some kind of natural treasure that could recover mystic energy at any time. Of course, this kind of thing was very rare. After the mystic domain realm disappeared, Arbor felt that the vast and mighty mystic energy in his body had already successfully broken through the barrier of level 11 mystic cultivator. Level 12 mystic cultivator, entry level. Chapter 753. Sure enough, this level 11 mystic breakthrough pill was out of the ordinary. It helped her break through the 4 minor realms of level 11 mystic cultivator, gradual accomplishment, initial accomplishment, phenomenal accomplishment, and peak, in one fell swoop, successfully entering the threshold realm of level 12 mystic cultivator. However, this was also thanks to her usual cultivation realm suppression and accumulation. Arbor slowly opened her eyes, and there seemed to be star fragments swirling and gathering in her clear and cold eyes. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Mo Lien's tall and straight figure imprinted itself into her eyes. That man in white, who was as slender and exquisite as jade bamboo, was currently standing under the towering peach blossom tree beside her and gazing at her with a grin. Arbor immediately crawled up from the ground. She rubbed her eyes and abruptly reached out to pounce at Mo Lien. The man's chuckle deepened. He reached out and caught the little fellow in his arms, pressing her down and stealing a kiss without any explanation. Jojo. Mo Lien. Arbor's little head squirmed in his arms, and she looked up at him. I advanced. Emichum, my Jojo is awesome. Mo Lien reached out to hug her, his eyes turning into crescents as he smiled. Jojo, Jojo. Arbor turned to look around and suddenly seemed to have discovered something. Her gaze landed on the towering peach blossom tree behind the two of them, and she exclaimed in shock, Chocho, Chocho. This tree. Master. Chocho stood up stiffly from under the tree like a corpse coming back to life. It straddled its 2 short legs and wailed as it wriggled over to Arbor's side. Its 2 forked arms hugged Arbor's thighs and hung on her skirt. Chocho wailed, Master. I actually wanted to tell you yesterday. I don't know if our family's peach blossom tree ate the wrong thing, but it feels like it's grown a bit perverted. Arbor. Oh right, where's the little white snake? How is it? What could have happened to little white snake? It just used too much force and now needs to rest and recover. Although Arbor had sealed his 5 senses at that time, his telegnosis could still see the scene of the little white snake biting through the dwarf's second brother. At that time, if it wasn't for the little white snake's attack, his situation would have been very bad. Xiao Mu first went to the peach tree to check on the white snakelet that was paralyzed and recuperating there with its eyes closed. After confirming that it was indeed fine, she then pulled Mo Yen towards that perverted peach tree. "Qiu, what's wrong with this tree?" "Master, this peach blossom tree has become so strange. I think it has something to do with that lump of dirt." "What dirt clump?" "Master Silver, go take a look." "Do you still remember the lump of dirt that you took out from the blue wand's wing?" With that, Arbor remembered. She hurriedly pulled Mo Yen and ran to the peach blossom tree. Was it that day? She took out that soft lump of dirt from the blue wand's wound and threw it on the ground. Before she left, she stepped on it and it stuck to the bottom of her shoe. She then casually raised her foot and rubbed it against a peach blossom tree, rubbing the soft lump of dirt under the peach blossom tree. It can't be. Arbor hurriedly squatted under the peach blossom tree and pulled at a thin and soft peach blossom petal under the tree. She saw that the thumb-sized lump of dirt was indeed stuck under the peach blossom tree. It's it, Master Silver. How could a normal lump of dirt possibly scratch the blue wand's wing? Coo, coo. Little Chick nodded furiously in full agreement. Chapter 754. Master, if I didn't guess wrongly. The sapling stretched out a branch and propped its chin up in deep thought. This isn't some ordinary lump of dirt at all. I suspect that it's sacred earth. Arbor's little jaw was about to drop. Mo Yen was also a little shocked. She turned her head to look at the sapling's pensive expression and happened to meet the sapling's 2 little black eyes that were embedded in the tree trunk. Sacred earth? Arbor waved at the little water child lying on the side. The water child let out a jubilant cry and swiftly hopped onto Xiao Mu's palm, twisting its small, chubby body in high spirits on her palm. You're saying that that lump of dirt is the same as sacred earth? The sacred earth that surpasses the earth origin? Arbor didn't quite believe herself when she said this. She stretched out a finger and poked at the lump of dirt stuck to the foot of the peach blossom tree. The little lump of dirt actually let out a thin sound, and that lump of dirt rolled a little. Arbor's little hand shrank back. The little water child even cried out in alarm and stretched out its little watery hands to hug Arbor's wrist. It widened its eyes defensively. Be careful, Master, this is a monster. You're a monster yourself. The sapling slapped the little water child's onion head with its branch in annoyance. Guru. The little water child melted into a water blob. Its 2 blue eyes were embedded in that blob of water, ready to attack at any time. Be careful, Master. Dottie will protect you. What monster are you? What are you? Arbor, Dot. The sapling, Qiu, was really angered by this idiot water. You said you were a drop of water, chattering away like a monster all day long, and now you dare to call someone else a monster. Sigh, go. The sapling swung its branch in annoyance and pushed the little water child to the side. Master, Qiu feels a little tired. You take care of this sacred earth, I'm going to sleep for a while. Hey, don't go. You'll have to send us out later, Arbor said hurriedly. All right then. Master, hurry up. The sapling sat down under the peach blossom tree. Little ball, why are you so tired? Is it because I pulled Mo Yen in? Arbor couldn't care less about that lump of dirt. He hurriedly ran to check on Sapling's clone. Qiu's main body couldn't move in the star field, but seeing how tired its doppelganger was, its main body couldn't be any better. Not entirely. Qiu shook its head and lifted its branch to point at the surroundings. Master, look. Arbor looked around along its branches. Here. Why is the profound energy so thin? Chocho pitifully nodded its little head. Master, once my profound energy is thin, Chocho feels as if I can't breathe. My head is so dizzy and heavy. I want to sleep. Then rest for a while first. Arbor hurriedly reached out to comfort little ball. It must be because I just advanced here and absorbed all the profound energy in Paradise Planet. Arbor's gaze was slightly grave as he turned to look at Mo Yen. Mo Yen hurriedly said, then is there any way to replenish the profound energy here? Little ball stealthily swept a glance at Mo Yen. It leaned weakly against the peach blossom tree and said, you don't have to care about me, let me slowly recover on my own. Sigh. Why are you being so eccentric? Hurry up and say what you have to say. I didn't succeed in reversing the situation. Duh. Chapter 755. Master, normal mystic energy is of no use to me. What I need is the purest mystic energy in the world to absorb, or the essence of mystic energy cultivated in a person's body. The more mellow and rich it is, the more effective it is for my recovery. As it spoke, its beady black eyes swept over Mo Yen from time to time. Arbor didn't hold back and gave the sapling's head a flick. This sentient tree was still thinking about Mo Yen. Just how smart was Mo Yen? When he saw the sapling in this state, he recalled that time in Qinghe town when a tree vine had stealthily crawled up his wrist to absorb his mystic energy. That time, it was this sapling's doing, right? Mo Yen grinned as she squatted down in front of the sapling, using a patient tone to say, it's not that I can't give you mystic energy, but you have to listen to me in the future. If I want to come in, you have to pull me in at any time. How about it? Deal. The sapling didn't say another word and immediately made the decision. Arbor slanted its beautiful eyes and glared at Chocho, who was ignoring its master's will. The sapling immediately rolled its eyes and fell onto the peach tree. Master, I'm so tired, I can't even keep my eyes open. Your acting is so fake, doesn't your conscience hurt? Sapling, it doesn't hurt. What the hell is conscience? Can it be eaten? Mo Yen pursed her lips and smiled. She stretched out her wrist in front of the sapling and raised her phoenix eyes slightly. Hurry up. Chocho cheered and its claws immediately climbed onto Mo Yen's wrist like an octopus and hugged her tightly. Arbor angrily glanced at the person and tree. Chocho, give me a little more time. Don't go overboard. Seeing that the person and tree had already entered the state of transmitting mystic energy, Xiao Mu helplessly rolled her eyes. She stood up and looked at the thin mystic energy floating in the air. She thought to herself, the mystic energy in the paradise can only be slowly replenished after she leaves and finds an opportunity to absorb mystic energy from the outside world and convert it to Chocho. Chocho, can't you absorb the mystic energy in the profound stones as a supplement? No. The little water child shook its head in place of Chocho and replied, Master Silver, Chocho's main body supports the entire star field. Actually, all the profound energy in this star region was closely related to Chocho's main body. For every portion of Master Silver used, Chocho's main body would consume a portion more. If its main body consumes too much energy and cannot be replenished in time, it will also affect the stability of the star field, and the paradise will also be damaged. There were always impurities in magnetite and spirit stones that weren't suitable for Chocho to absorb. Only the purest profound energy between heaven and earth could protect Chocho. Or for those with extremely high cultivation, the profound energy essence they cultivated could also help it recover quickly. Like you, Master Silver, the profound energy you cultivate is not good enough. The moment the little water child finished speaking, he felt that there was something wrong with what he said. Something was wrong. Before the round water ball could even jump, Arbor reached out and gave it a heavy knock on the head. What you mean is that the Xian energy in Master Silver's body is not good enough for the Xian energy in Master Silver's body. He let it slip. The water ball hurriedly rolled to remedy the situation. No, Master Silver, Dian doesn't have the slightest intention of despising Master Silver. Ha! The corner of Arbor's mouth twitched and he glanced at the little water ball. Other than the 2 supplements you mentioned, there are no other ways. Chapter 756. And, there's also an extremely rare heavenly treasure called the Black Spirit Jade. It can replenish the energy of us 5 spirits. The little water ball chirped. However, Master Silver, the Black Spirit Jade is very hard to find. It's said that it's buried in the deepest part of a spirit stone mine, but very few people can find the existence of Black Spirit Jade in a spirit stone mine. Sigh. Black Spirit Jade. Arbor muttered to herself. Carrying the little water ball, she walked to the foot of the peach blossom tree and poked at the little clump of dirt that was lying dormant under the peach blossom tree. If you're the sacred ground that little ball spoke of, then flip over and let me see. The little water ball widened its eyes and stared nervously at the little clump of dirt. The little clump of dirt that had been motionless all this time, as if it was playing dead, suddenly moved and really flipped over. It moved from under the peach blossom tree to Arbor's feet with a gurgling sound. Arbor lowered her head and met the little water ball's eyes. Both of them cried out in their hearts at the same time, "It really is a clump of dirt that has become a spirit. This peach blossom tree of mine is your doing, isn't it?" A green vine quietly crept out from under Arbor's sleeve and whipped at the clump of dirt on the ground. "Hurry up and show yourself." The little clump of dirt that was as thick as a thumb jumped and jumped, hiding behind the tree. After a long while, under Arbor's scolding, it stuck its head out from behind the tree. Arbor took a closer look and was almost angered to the point of laughing. This clump of dirt had turned into a square clump of yellow dirt. It had 2 black eyes and was timidly hiding behind the tree to look at her. "Come here." Arbor rolled up her little sleeves and used the vine in her hand to draw a bright mark on the ground. "Master, let me go catch it." The little water ball immediately helped the tyrant and stretched out its evil claws towards its brother. It spat out a rapidly spinning wave of water from its mouth. Like a water dragon, it bypassed the towering peach blossom tree and suddenly wrapped around the yellow soil block. When the clump of dirt saw the flood of water, it almost peed in fright. It hurriedly squatted down and completely buried itself under the peach blossom tree's roots, shrinking until there was no trace of it. Thus, the little water ball's mighty wave of water rushed all over the peach blossom tree with a splash. Mo Lien and Little Ball, who were under the tree, were drenched from head to toe. "Arbor." Cough cough cough. Arbor raised her voice to reprimand and reprimanded, "Dotard, what are you doing? Don't spray." As she spoke, she hurriedly stepped forward, took out a clean white cloth from her inner world, and hurriedly wiped the water droplets on the man's face. Mo Lien opened his eyes slightly and abruptly grasped one of her fair and tender wrists, abruptly pulling her into his dripping embrace. "You did it on purpose, didn't you, baby?" Mo Lien blinked at the little fellow and unhurriedly unbuttoned her outer shirt. Her fingers then moved to her waist to undo her belt. Her expression was very captivating. "If you want to see your husband's body, just say it. Why did you have to make such a big wave of water and drench your husband? TSK, he's soaked." "Arbor, what can I say? This narcissistic man, I didn't want to see your body." Mo Lien's fingers gently tickled the little fellow's waist. Arbor couldn't help but burst out laughing. She twisted her little body and turned her head to look at him with a slightly red face. She reached out to hit him neither lightly nor heavily. "Hurry and dry yourself with the fire spirit." "Ha, you got it wet. You're responsible for wringing it dry." Mo Lien moved closer to her neck and nuzzled her head under her hair. Chapter 757. Arbor reached out and pinched him on the waist. However, even when her fingers hurt, she couldn't pinch him. She was so angry that she scratched him on the waist as well. "Don't touch me." Mo Lien pulled her little hand to her face with a serious expression. She held it in her hands and kissed it twice. "Jojo, this is where you've been for the past 2 years, right? Arbor was slightly startled, but then nodded. She reached out and hooked her arms around his neck. She stared at him with her dark eyes and said, You? Are you angry? Why would I be angry? Mo Yen was also slightly startled. Arbor gently bit her lips. I hid it from you. Do you blame me for not telling you about the paradise planet earlier? Mo Yen stared at her, her eyes as gentle as water. How could I? On the contrary, I'm very happy that Jojo was able to tell me such an important secret. He rubbed his wet head against her cheek. Jojo, I'm very happy that you trust me so much. And I will absolutely not betray the trust you have in me, even if it means death. Alright, you don't have to swear. Arbor reached out and covered his thin lips. She rolled her eyes and said, Look, my paradise planet is very powerful. Ordinary people can't sense the aura of this profound domain at all. Moreover, she was very careful. When she was in front of others, she almost never went in and out of Paradise Planet, so as to avoid being targeted by people with ulterior motives. After all, no one knew if there really were strange people in this world who could see through the profound domain of others. It was best to be careful in everything. Moreover, this profound domain of hers was no ordinary profound domain. In the future, Mo Yen would know that this profound domain of hers was a large and strange star domain. Mo Yen hugged her and nodded. Her expression relaxed a little as she smiled and said, Jojo, with such a life-saving mysterious domain, I can rest assured in the future. Mo Yen, the reason why you couldn't sense my aura before was because I didn't know before. I was afraid that you would leave me without a word. Now I know. Mo Yen reached out to cup her little face and planted a kiss on her soft little face. In the future, I don't need to worry like this anymore. Xiao Mu pursed her small mouth and grumbled, You've already reached an agreement with the sapling immediately. Mo Yen chuckled, and a green vine emerged from her sleeve. Do you see that? You are now in a place where nothing can be removed. If you hide in the land of peach blossoms, I will follow you. Arbor's eyes suddenly widened. He turned his head to look at the little tree ant that was lying on the ground like a corpse. Ha, you bastard! It had actually been snapped off by Mo Yen to become a doppelganger. This time, Mo Yen really could summon Little Tree at any time. As long as Little Tree didn't leave the Mo Kingdom capital, he could enter and leave Peach Blossom's planet as he pleased. Chio, you've recovered a little now. Hurry and dig out that dirt lump. Hurry and deal with it. Arbor hastily instructed. Seeing that its little master didn't blame it, Chio quickly jumped out and ran to the peach tree. It dug out the yellow dirt lump that was hiding underground in a matter of minutes and gave it a good beating without any explanation. It beat that piece of sacred soil until it pitifully reached out 2 dirt arms and hugged its square head, letting out trembling noises. Chio. Arbor reached out to lift Chio to the side and irritably hit it. Why are you so violent? Are you alright, dirt lump? Arbor expressionlessly stroked Chio's square head. The latter inexplicably shuddered for some reason. Chapter 758. When Masta caressed it with a stoic face, she looked so scary. Crown Prince Mo also lowered his head to look at this lump of lus. He also caressed the lump of lus's squarish head in passing, his eyes full of watery glints of swords. Master Silver. Feeling that the man was even more difficult to deal with, the lump of soil waved its small hands and feet in a very human-like manner. With its square head, it ran to its little master's skirt and squatted down, looking like it was asking for protection and hugs. Little Water Ball saw this. Oh no, why was there another one acting cute here? It was already very unhappy that the little white snake was fighting with it for attention, alright? Mo Yen snorted softly. With a wave of his hand, a few inches of red flames circled around his hand. In an instant, the water on his and Jojo's bodies was dried. Little soil. Arbor lifted the square head of the sacred soil and placed it on the stone stool under the peach tree. What's wrong with this tree? I didn't do anything. The square head stretched out two thin soil arms and hurriedly waved them in front of Arbor. Master, this is the only good thing about the sacred soil. You can plant anything on it. No matter how difficult it is to plant, it will grow quickly. The little tree suddenly reached out and patted the tree trunk. Master, wait. Arbor glanced at it, only to see Chio go and come back quickly. She didn't know where it came from, but it quickly slipped back to her side, holding a seed on its branch. Master, plant this longevity tree seed on the sacred soil. When it grows, I'll transplant it somewhere else. The little tree Chio waved its branches happily. Master, you're really lucky. I've been thinking about how to plant the longevity tree for a long time now. It's very difficult to plant the longevity tree. Without the sacred soil, I feel that even if I keep hastening it, it won't be able to grow smoothly. It's all good now. Chio happily urged Arbor. Master, hurry up. Once the longevity tree was planted in the ground, as long as it sprouted, Chio would be able to speed up the growth of the longevity tree. Furthermore, it would be able to absorb the longevity tree's pure energy during the process. Ahaha! The pure elemental life force contained within the longevity tree was not as weak as the 10 or so winter fruit trees. The more Little Ball thought about it, the happier he got. As long as it absorbed a portion of the longevity tree's life force, it would definitely be able to immediately recover to its original state and recover all the profound energy in this paradise. Little Ball was really the best. Arbor didn't know what the spirit tree was thinking, but when he glanced at it, he felt that Chio was too enthusiastic. Master Silver, quickly plant it. Chio hurriedly urged again. Arbor glanced at the lump of dirt. You? Ah! The cube of soil immediately lay flat and turned into a clump of earthy yellow soil. It rolled over very spiritually. Arbor was holding that longevity tree seed. When she was burying it in the sacred soil, her fingertip was accidentally pricked by the seed. A drop of red blood was buried in the sacred soil along with the seed. Mo Yen swiftly pulled Arbor up and reached out to wipe her injured finger. At that moment, the sacred soil in front of them emitted a faint yellow luster. An earth particle instantly left the sacred soil and flew towards Arbor. Chio shouted, Master, catch this essence earth. Chapter 759. Arbor's heart stirred. The life essence earth was the same as Little Water's life essence water. It could increase her cultivation that she did not have time to think further. With Chio's assistance, the life essence earth entered her body in a flash. It was quickly wrapped around by the little tree's branches and sucked into the mystic domain that suddenly opened up. At the same time, Arbor and Mo Yen felt at the same time that the paradise star they were standing on trembled slightly. Arbor could see that the entire star field had lit up for a moment. In the vast and boundless star field, a fist-sized main star was suspended high up in the center of the star field. 4 stars of different colors slowly revolved around the main star. Suddenly, they dimmed again. Little Water Child shook its body at the side, countless drops of water falling onto the sacred ground. In a few seconds, a thin sapling of the longevity tree broke out of the ground, burrowing out of the sacred ground and stretching its thin and weak body. Mo Yen and Xiao Mu both focused their eyes, and they subconsciously clasped their hands together. Then, they slowly moved their feet and slowly retreated backwards. Chio was excitedly stimulating the growth of the longevity tree at the side, absorbing the vigorous life force of the longevity tree at the same time. Its little tree face was filled with joy. In front of them, the longevity tree's sapling that had burrowed out of the sacred ground was gradually growing longer and thicker, its branches and leaves growing upwards. Countless emerald green leaves grew out of the tree trunk. Until a flower bud quietly bloomed on the branch. The ball-shaped flowers released their buds one by one, releasing multicolored rays of light. Xiao Mu tilted her head up slightly, her gaze fixated on that longevity tree. The flowers of the longevity tree were actually so colorful. How could they be so beautiful? When those ball-shaped flowers bloomed, it was like countless fireworks were exploding in front of her eyes. So beautiful. His line of sight was filled with magnificent colors. It was as if the entire paradise star field had been lit up, releasing endless light in all directions. Under the longevity tree, there were clusters of flowers. A pair of immortal-like jade people looked at each other. From each other's eyes, they could see tenderness and sweetness. Changsheng and Mo Ruo would be together forever. Only with you in this life can immortality show its true meaning. Otherwise, it would just be a waste of time, a waste of time. Their gazes locked together, and everything in the world seemed to disappear before their eyes at this moment. Time and space no longer existed. Even the longevity tree that emitted a flourishing light was not as beautiful as the person in each other's hearts. Qiuqiu landed on the ground with a thud and lay at the foot of the longevity tree, panting heavily. Wow, the longevity tree's life force was indeed tenacious. Even after absorbing so much life force, it was still able to bloom flowers. Qiuqiu, what's wrong? Arbor's gaze shifted from Mo Yan's face to Qiuqiu, who was as bright as 3,000 candles. I'm fine, I'm fine. Qiuqiu stretched out its little paw and yawned tiredly. Master, I'll transplant the longevity tree next to this peach tree. Qiuqiu blinked its black beady eyes and said, it'll take a long time for the longevity tree to bloom before it bears longevity fruits. Arbor nodded indifferently and watched as Qiuqiu easily lifted the longevity tree and buried it next to the giant peach tree. This longevity tree was really tall. Its slender figure was a stark contrast to the giant peach tree next to it. Chapter 760. Qiuqiu stretched out his hand and yawned. Master, I've sealed the essence earth in your mystic domain. You can slowly fuse with it like how you fused with the essence water. I'm afraid you'll need to spend 2 to 3 months to fuse with it this time. Are you also going into closed-door cultivation to prepare to advance? Arbor's brows twitched as he immediately sensed something. Qiuqiu nodded. I'm not the only one who's going into closed-door cultivation. Lady Holy Water and this dirt lump are also going into closed-door cultivation. Master, this time, I might need a bit more time than last time. You have to be well and not have anything happen to you. Arbor's lips curled up slightly. His face was expressionless, but a trace of bitterness flooded his heart. What can happen to me? You also said the same thing last time, but didn't something still happen in the end? And it was a major matter, the Holy Water sect was completely uprooted. Arbor's eyes gradually turned icy, and he spat out a string of cold words. That kind of thing will never happen again. The people who hurt her would eventually pay with their blood. Qiuqiu sighed and said earnestly, Master, I can't drag you into Paradise Planet in these 3 to 4 months, and you can't come in yourself either. You have to be extra careful. You mustn't get injured again and make me worry. Arbor walked up and picked up the little tray ant. He rubbed its small head that had 4 to 5 tender leaves. Don't worry. This time, no one can hurt me again. Qiuqiu nodded cutely. Pmichum. Then you can bring the little white snake out. Arbor shook his head. Let it rest properly here. It doesn't look like it's waking up at all. Perhaps it used up too much energy from before. Caw, caw. The little chick flapped its wings and flew onto Arbor's shoulder. It held its head high and puffed out its chest, looking disdainfully at the world. See. At crucial moments, you still have to rely on your Lord Qinghuan. Qiuqiu sleepily shook its head. All right, then you can bring Qinghuan out. Be more careful, Master. Master, you have to be good. The little water baby strode forward with its short little legs, tugged at the corner of Arbor's skirt, raised its head and called out cutely. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on Jojo. Nothing can happen. Mo Yen jumped down from the stone block at the side, glanced at the little Treant and the little water baby, and stepped forward to hold Arbor's little hand. Xiao Mu turned her head to meet his eyes. Qiu nodded repeatedly. Master, if I can successfully advance to the late stage of the infant stage and step into the growth stage this time, then I'll be able to do so. Who knows, maybe we'll be able to open the other stars in the starfield. Really? Arbor was delighted. Perhaps, but at the very least, I need to enter the growth stage before I can open the other powerful stars. Ah. Qiu fell down from the longevity tree in exhaustion. Master, let me send you out. Be careful and don't let Qiu worry. Qiu, I brought Qiu out with me. These few months, I left it alone in the treehouse without anyone to take care of it. I'm worried. Okay. Qiu, I'm not in a hurry to open the stars. Take care of yourself, don't be greedy when you advance. Arbor's lips moved slightly, and he raised his hand to pat the little tree's head. I'll wait for you to come out. Qiu nodded, shook its 2 branches, and sent the 2 of them out together with Qingwan and the little white squirrel. Chapter 761. As soon as the 2 of them came out, they choked on a mouthful of dust. With a flick of their sleeves, they swept away the hazy gray air in front of them and lightly coughed twice. The perfectly fine wing room in the city lord's estate had now become a wasteland. Mo Yen lowered her head to glance at his little one and pursed her lips into a smile. Jojo, we have to change rooms tonight. Arbor rolled her eyes at him. Huifeng passed through the window with a sound. When he saw the 2 of them, his gaze relaxed slightly, and he exhaled. Although he had received the Crown Prince's message earlier that he and the Crown Princess were fine, Huifeng still felt uneasy without seeing the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess with his own eyes. This subordinate came too late to rescue your highness. All right. Mo Yen waved her hand and said, the Crown Princess and I are both fine. Are there any casualties among the hidden guards outside? In reply to your highness. Only a few people were bitten by venomous snakes, but they have already taken the antidote and are fine for the time being. Huifeng cupped his hands and said, this subordinate dispatched people to search Beilan City and discovered traces of several people from Shuntian Prefecture. This subordinate was incompetent and was still a bit late, so we weren't able to catch those fish that escaped the net from Shuntian Prefecture. Will your highness please mete out punishment? Lu Yiji's group's whereabouts are strange and cunning. Besides, you aren't their match, so don't make unnecessary sacrifices. Arbor shook her head and said, that midget who came to assassinate me this time is from Shuntian Prefecture. He should be the twin brother of that midget who delusionally tried to poison the Crown Prince in the Qin estate last time. I think they look exactly the same. Shuntian Prefecture again. Mo Yen snorted. These fish that escaped the net from Shuntian Prefecture had been hiding in nooks and crannies for the past 2 years, so it was a bit difficult to find them. No hurry, just take your time to find them. Arbor was expressionless. What she wanted was to uproot them completely. What about that midget? In reply to the Crown Princess, only half of the midget's corpse is left. Should he be hung at Beilan City's city gate and flogged for 3 days and nights for the crime of great disrespect? Arbor shook his head. No need. His corpse is so ugly and bloody. If we hang it at the city gate, we don't want to scare the people coming and going. Huifeng lowered his head and chuckled as he cupped his fists in salute. Yes. Then this subordinate will go and burn him, so that he won't turn into a corpse and cause trouble. Arbor nodded, and Mo Yen held his little hand as they walked out of the dusty and dilapidated room. City Lord Lin, who had heard the news, repeatedly thanked the heavens and personally led the 2 of them to the newly prepared room to rest. At this time, it was already deep into the night. Because the City Lord's estate had suddenly been attacked, it had been tossed around until the middle of the night. Beilan City had even issued several curfews in succession to strictly investigate the people who left the city. That dead gnome knows how to burrow. Those fish from Shuntian Prefecture that escaped the net must have left through the underground passageway. Arbor pondered for a moment before saying, City Lord, go find some experts in underground reconnaissance and find that secret passageway that leads outside the city. Hurry up and seal it so as to avoid being exploited by thieves. Yes, yes. City Lord Lin's forehead was about to break out in sweat. The Crown Princess's successive mishaps in his Bailon city made him so anxious that he was like an ant on a hot pan, constantly running in circles. Thus, he listened to Arbor's instructions and sent people to find experts in underground reconnaissance overnight to hurry to the place where Lu Yizhi and the others had previously stayed at in Shuntian Prefecture to investigate the traces of the secret passageway. Arbor and Mo Yen also felt a bit tired after being tossed around for so long, so they each washed up and returned to their rooms to sleep. Chapter 762. It wasn't until noon the next day that Lin Yongyi personally came to report that he had indeed found the secret passage leading out of the city and had sent people to deal with it. Mo Yen walked into the room. She immediately saw the little girl tilting her head and using a small spoon to feed a white squirrel a life-prolonging medicinal liquid. Mo Yen naturally recognized this furry white squirrel. What's wrong with it? 2 years ago, it blocked a fatal blow from a mystic cultivator from Shuntian Prefecture for me, and then it fell into a coma. Arbor reached out to stroke the little white squirrel's fur. I gave it life-prolonging medicinal liquid, but it was useless. Jojo, I don't think it's seriously injured. The Crown Prince walked up and pulled a stool to sit next to Arbor. He reached out to pinch the little white squirrel's small ears. This little beast isn't as simple as it appears on the surface. I feel that it is advancing in rank. Ah. Arbor opened her mouth in shock, but then shook her head repeatedly. Impossible. Chocho and the others advance in rank at most 3 to 4 months. This little guy has already been unconscious for more than 2 years. How can it be advancing in rank for more than 2 years? If it's not advancing in rank, then it's recovering. Recovering? Arbor glanced at the Crown Prince in shock. What do you mean? Prince Mo reached out to grasp her small hand. Do you think that this little beast is just an ordinary mystic beast? No. Arbor immediately shook her head and said bluntly, when I first saw it, I only thought that it was an ordinary forest little beast. It can't be called a mystic beast at all. Prince Mo immediately turned his face and couldn't help but laugh loudly. Jojo. You really need to properly train your, eyesight. Eyesight. Arbor snorted and didn't give him any face. She even rolled her eyes at him. This little beast most likely isn't a mystic beast. Maybe it's a spirit beast, or maybe a divine beast. What? Arbor's round, black eyes widened. He shook his head and said, You're thinking too much. Let me tell you. My little squirrel. It only knows how to identify magnetite and mine magnetite. Other than that, I've never seen it have any special abilities. Arbor tilted his head and thought for a while. Biting people is also a skill. It carries a deadly poison, but according to my research, this deadly poison can only kill 5 or 6 people at most. Also, mystic cultivators above level 11 will greatly increase their defense against poison. Mo Yen lifted the little white squirrel onto her lap and turned to look at Arbor with a smile. Jojo, why don't you feed it some strong medicine? For example, the previous batch of poisonous snakes. Cut open their bodies and take out their gallbladders. Arbor's eyes lit up. Will it work? It's better than feeding it life-extending elixir all day. That batch of poisonous snakes is considered a mystic beast with some success, so there must be some power essence left in their gallbladders. Mo Yen lifted the little white squirrel up. In short, it won't harm it. The two looked at each other. Arbor seemed to have made up his mind and nodded vigorously. Thus, Mo Lien ordered people to take the gallbladders of the dead snakes that attacked Arbor and feed them to the little white squirrel every day. In less than 2 days, the little white squirrel's body indeed underwent a strange change. Its fluffy tail grew longer, its fur became glossy, and its entire body emitted a lustrous white light. Chapter 763. Seeing that the snake gallbladder was effective, Arbor hastily carried the little white squirrel and ran to find Mo Lien, discussing with him how to catch more mystic beasts to feed the little squirrel. Mo Lien couldn't help but reach out in amusement and hug this impatient little one. There aren't any mystic beasts in the vicinity, but there might be zombies. Mystic beasts usually only appear in the Mystic Beast Forest, which is a bit too far from here. We still have to hurry back after we're done with the matters here. In this case, you should be at ease. That squirrel wasn't injured at all. Perhaps that person's palm strike 2 years ago just happened to hit the seal on its body. It has been recovering these past 2 years. Mo Lien lowered his head to look at Jojo, his expression somewhat solemn. I suspect that its original body isn't like this at all. What kind of original body would need such a long time to recover? Arbor stared blankly at him. Would it be like this? Mo Lien laughed in spite of himself and pressed his forehead against hers. His dark phoenix eyes roamed around as he gazed deeply at her. Jojo, don't worry. Even if you don't feed it, it will slowly recover on its own. It'll just take a bit longer. If we can find something that can help it recover, such as snake gallbladders or mystic beast cores, perhaps it can help and speed up its recovery. But time is tight for our trip, and we still have to return to the Mo Kingdom capital to celebrate the new year. How about this? I'll have Morning Sunlight Pavilion search and bring over all the usable mystic beast cores for you. After we celebrate the new year, we can find an opportunity to make a trip to the Mystic Beast Forest and help find even more mystic beast cores. Arbor nodded repeatedly, gazing at Mo Lien with sparkling eyes. In that case, Chirpy should be able to recover very quickly and wake up, right? That's right. Mo Lien cupped her small face and planted a kiss on her pink and tender cheek. After the new year, I'll go with you. Your Highness. Lin Yongyi's anxious voice suddenly sounded from outside the room. Mo Lien raised her hand and pinched Arbor's little face, loosened her waist, and casually straightened her robe and sat down. Come in. As soon as Lin Yongyi entered, he hurriedly greeted the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. The Crown Princess was wearing a white robe and was holding a fat, snow-white ball in her arms. She sat beside the Crown Prince and glanced at him. Lin Yongyi didn't dare to look, nor did he see clearly what was in the Crown Princess' arms. He only bowed respectfully, took 2 steps back, and said with a lowered head, Your Highness. Something happened at the farm this morning. For some reason, the people in the farm are all vomiting and having diarrhea. They can't get off the ground at all. Where's Hong Yaowei? Hong Yaowei has the same symptoms. Other than Hong Yaowei, the other 6 or 7 commissioners who are responsible for the growth of the yellow stems all have vomiting and diarrhea. Even the guards, maids, and servants of the farm are all the same. Mo Lien stood up and said, Let's go to the farm. He was about to turn around and tell Jojo that he was leaving for a while, when he saw the little fellow running to his side with a chubby squirrel in her arms. She looked up and said, Let's go together. Mo Lien had always agreed to his little emperor baby's request. When he heard this, he didn't think much and nodded. Okay. This humble subject will go prepare the carriage for the Crown Princess. No need, just ride a horse. Arbor didn't care so much. Mo Lien smiled slightly, reached out to take the little fellow's little hand, and walked out quickly. Prepare the horse. See you tomorrow. Chapter 764. The two rode on the same horse and headed to the farm. Lin Yongyi followed with Old Man Sun, explaining to the Crown Prince what happened at the farm along the way. According to Lin Yongyi, everything was fine at the farm yesterday. Those troublemakers also didn't dare to cause trouble under the Crown Prince's tyrannical suppression. Although the group led by Hong Yaowei was angry, they didn't dare to cause trouble at the farm. After all, no one wanted to lose their heads for no reason. What did they eat this morning? Prince Mo asked faintly. Lin Yongyi followed behind Prince Mo on his horse and hurriedly said, breakfast was prepared by the kitchen. But now, everyone in the farm, including the people in the kitchen, is vomiting and having diarrhea. What did the doctor say? The doctor went early in the morning. He wrote a prescription and boiled medicine, but it doesn't seem to be effective. As they spoke, the group quickly arrived at the entrance of the farm. Mo Lien dismounted and reached out to carry Qiao Qiao, who was playing with the little squirrel with her head lowered, off the horse. His arm very naturally looped around her slender waist, and he quickly walked into the farm with her in his arms. Lin Yongyi and the others hurriedly followed. As soon as they entered, they saw the guards of the city lord's estate who were originally guarding the door also collapsed on the ground, quietly crying out in pain. Arbor glanced at the guards on the ground and was gently pulled by Mo Yen around his waist. His footsteps involuntarily moved forward. Many people were lying in disorder in the farm, each of them half curled up and holding their stomachs as they rolled around. Xiao Yi led a dozen members of the night pavilion and quickly walked out of the house to greet the crown prince. They all bowed in unison. What's going on? Prince Mo's gaze swept over them. Your Highness, we didn't eat the food and water on the farm. Xiao Yi bowed and said, our brothers are all fine. The doctor is here, the doctor is here. Doctor, I'm still in pain. Can you write another prescription? When the doctor passed by the flower bed, he was stopped by a woman who begged. Ai, this old man has already written all the medicine that can be prescribed. The way I see it, it doesn't seem as simple as having a stomachache. The old doctor shook his head repeatedly and said, this old man feels that this is rather similar to the symptoms of being poisoned. It hurts. My stomach hurts. Mother. A little boy who had fallen on the side of the dirt road was rolling on the ground and crying. Unfortunately, his parents couldn't even take care of themselves right now. Arbor quickly stuffed the little white squirrel in his arms into Mo Yen's hands and waved in the direction of the little boy. Bring him over. The boy was only 7 or 8 years old. At this time, he was in so much pain that he was sweating profusely. His face was dirty with snot and tears. Lin Yongyi hurriedly took out a clean handkerchief and said in front of Arbor, Crown Princess, let me do it. As she spoke, she hurriedly wiped the boy's dirty face with a white cloth and brought him in front of Qiao Mu. Where does it hurt? Arbor reached out to feel the boy's pulse. The boy kept shaking his arm as he cried and mumbled, it hurts everywhere. It hurts everywhere. It hurts everywhere. Lin Yongyi, old man's son, and the others couldn't help but twitch the corners of their mouths. Arbor didn't get angry. He raised his hand and patted the little boy's head. You're a man. What are you crying for? Stop crying. The boy stopped crying with reddened eyes, but his eyes were still filled with tears. He looked pitifully at Arbor and said, Sister, if you're in as much pain as I am, you'll cry too. Chapter 765. What nonsense are you talking about? City Lord Lin pulled a long face, scaring the child into silence. Arbor waved his hand at Lin Yongyi, took out a long silver needle from his needle bag, and waved it in front of the little boy. Of course elder sister won't cry. If elder sister is in pain, she will seal her acupoints with silver needles and seal her 5 senses. That way, she won't feel pain. The little boy's eyes followed the silver needle in Arbor's hand. Elder sister, are you going to give me a needle? Will it stop hurting after the needle? Then are you scared? No. Go ahead. The boy reached out his hand and patted his chest hard. Arbor inserted the needle without hesitation. After 2 needles, the little boy drowsily closed his eyes. Move him into the room. Give me a pen and paper. Arbor stood up and said. Jojo. Do you know what kind of poison they were poisoned with? Mo Lien's eyes curved slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. It's not poison. This child has no symptoms of fever, vomiting, diarrhea, and unbearable abdominal pain. I can't find any toxins in his body, if I'm not wrong. They should have mistakenly ingested Edelweiss. How is that possible? The old doctor flung his sleeves hard. This is clearly some kind of heat poison. We should buy some pills to clear away heat and detoxify for them. No need. Arbor took the pen and paper handed over by Old Man's son and wrote down a few herbs on the paper. City Lord, I'll have to trouble you with these herbs. Let the people in the pharmacy boil them into a decoction according to the prescription. Crown Princess, you're too kind. This is the duty of this humble official. This humble official will immediately send people to do it. Lin Yongyi took the prescription and hurriedly ordered 2 confidants to go to the pharmacy to get the herbs and boil them. When the old doctor saw that Arbor dared to reject his diagnosis at such a young age, he was so angry that he picked up his medicine box and walked out. What's wrong with him? Xiao Mu looked up at Mo Lien in bewilderment, and she also reached out to take the little white squirrel that she had stuffed into his hands. He saw that you were young and didn't believe in your medical skills. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he flew into a rage out of humiliation and could only leave. Arbor said indifferently, I don't need others to believe me. Idiot. Mo Lien's heart skipped a beat. She raised her hand and stroked the hair on her little head. I don't care if others believe it or not. I believe it. Xiao Mu glanced back at him from the corner of her eye, but when she retracted her gaze, the corner of her mouth turned up imperceptibly. Soon, the pharmacy staff made a large tub of decoction according to Arbor's prescription. Arbor looked at the people lining up to get the medicine and couldn't help but mutter to himself, don't you think it's a little strange? Why is that person making such a big fuss? Is it just to make people vomit, have diarrhea, and have stomachaches? The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Mo Lien's eyes narrowed slightly. She secretly pulled Arbor's little hand and turned to give Lin Yongyi a look. The 3 of them quickly walked to the fields behind the farm. Your Highness, you suspect that this person is just creating a diversion and his main goal is to destroy a large area of the yellow pole field? Lin Yongyi's steps suddenly stopped. His body staggered slightly and he ran forward a few steps. He looked at the withered yellow pole and cried out agitatedly, how could this be? Ah! How could this be? Lin Yongyi hurriedly jumped onto the ridge and ran into the field. Chapter 766. Someone, search the manor from top to bottom and see who isn't in the manor right now. The Crown Prince's eyes darkened deeply. Arbor could sense the Crown Prince's fury bursting forth, and she scratched his palm with her small hand to pacify him. As far as her eyes could see, a large patch of withered crops was lying askew in the field. She didn't know that before today, the yellow stalks in this field had been growing brilliantly, and it was almost time for harvest. Grief welled up in Lin Yongyi's heart, and he couldn't resist kneeling in the field and bawling his eyes out. It's over, it's over, it's over, everything is over. The yellow stalks that he had spent so much time and effort on, enough to feed all of Bailon City's citizens, were destroyed by someone just like that. Your Highness, Your Highness. Xiao Yi hastily returned with another youth and reported through gritted teeth, Your Highness, it's Feng Manyun. Feng Manyun and her maid, Xiangqin, have both disappeared. Prince Mo was startled. He simply didn't remember this person called Feng Manyun. Your Highness, it's that Celestial Medicine Valley's physician Feng who disturbed the Crown Princess's secluded cultivation when you ordered her not to stay in the city lord's estate a few days ago. Seeing that his master clearly didn't remember, Hui Feng quickly reminded him. It's her. Recalling Feng Manyun's coquettish and pretentious gaze of adoration, Prince Mo felt his stomach churn incessantly. Physician Feng. Lin Yongyi, who was sitting on a piece of barren land, suddenly jumped up and bellowed furiously, "Physician Feng did it. Where is she? Where is she right now? Vicious woman. Look at what she's done. Why have all the yellow stalks in this field withered to death? Did she use some kind of vicious medicine to poison the entire land to the point that it became a wasteland? Ah, my yellow stalks." Lin Yongyi sprawled on the withered ground, gripping a handful of black soil as tears streamed down his face in dejection. Lin Yongyi was regretting his actions to death right now. If he hadn't felt some sympathy for Physician Feng back then, he wouldn't have ended up in this situation today. That day, when he received the Crown Prince's order to chase Feng Manyun out of the city lord's estate, he couldn't bear to let her wander the streets, so he secretly dispatched her to the manor. Who would have thought that he had nurtured a tiger that would bite him back? Lin Yongyi slapped himself in the face. At this moment, he was filled with regret, but he was powerless to reverse the situation. As expected, he was not a person who could accomplish great things. If he had received the Crown Prince's order and chased this poisonous woman out of the manor, who cared if she died or not, then how could he have ruined such a good harvest today? Ah 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 ah. Lin Yongyi pounded the ground and cried bitterly. Arbor's eyebrows moved slightly. Based on my conjecture, she must have ground the edelweiss into powder and scattered it into the well. She must have done something to the drinking water of the manor. This vicious woman. Old man's son spat angrily. How many wells do you have here? Take me there, Arbor suddenly said. This person is narrow-minded and vicious. I reckon he still has some tricks up his sleeve. Arbor's lips curled up slightly. Lin Yongyi raised his hand to give himself another huge slap before scrambling to the Crown Prince. He wailed miserably, Your Highness, it's this humble official's fault, this humble official is slow-witted. All right. Stop wailing and howling here. Go see if Hong Yao's abdominal pain has recovered yet. If it has, then have him immediately bring people down to the ground. If they can't recover the yellow stalks, we will have their heads. Mo Yen declared gravely. Lin Yongyi promptly crawled to the manor's forecourt, looking for Hong Yao with reddened eyes. Chapter 767. Crown Princess, please follow this old man. Meanwhile, old man's son led the way at the front, bringing the Crown Princess, the Crown Prince, and the others to one of the wells. Old man's son ordered a sturdy man to fetch a bucket of well water and bring it to Arbor. When Arbor picked up the water ladle, Mo Yen reached over and rolled up her loose sleeves slightly. Arbor scooped up a ladle of water and sniffed it before casually sprinkling a pinch of medicinal powder in it. After a light sizzle, the water inside the ladle instantly turned a thick black color, and a foul odor wafted out, causing everyone to retreat a few steps. Arbor shook her sleeves and sprinkled some more medicinal powder in, dispelling the foul odor in the water. She then turned to old man's son and said, Quickly inform everyone in the manor that they can't drink water for the time being. Jojo, is the powder of the tinder grass in this well water the one you mentioned? Mo Yen asked gravely. No, it's highly toxic. Arbor's expression also turned grave, and she said coldly with a smirk, Feng Manyun probably poisoned it again before she left. This water has been laced with a type of highly toxic poison that can cause a person to bleed from their 7 orifices and die an unnatural death with just a single mouthful. Old man's son jumped in fright, and he hastily instructed those 2 fearful sturdy lads to bring this news to everyone in the manor in the forecourt. Isn't Celestial Medicine Valley a place to treat illnesses and save people? The poison that it has developed is different from the usual. I will need about 7 to 8 minutes to dispel the poisoned water here. Other than this well water, are there other wells? Yes. There's another one behind it. There's another one, which is a channel specially used to irrigate farmland. The vicious woman wouldn't have also done something to that, right? It's very possible. Old man's son's eyes bulged, and he couldn't resist cursing, this vicious woman. She's simply deranged. All right, You don't need to accompany me here. After I'm done detoxifying the poison in the well, I'll gather all of you. After Arbor finished speaking, he winked at Mo Yen. Actually, why would she need 15 minutes to detoxify the poison? While speaking, she had already restored the well water to its original state. After Old Man's son and the others left, she took Mo Yen's hand and walked towards another well behind them. Mo Yen, I wonder if this bit of sacred soil of mine, combined with the sacred water's effects, can restore your yellow pole field. Xiao Mu took out a small cloth and unraveled it, revealing a pinch of soil inside. After exchanging glances with Xiao Mu, Mo Yen immediately revealed a smile. Quickly try it. Let's go. The two of them first went to detoxify the other well, then walked towards the channel beside the ridge. Meanwhile, giddy up, giddy up. Xiang Qin held the reins as she drove the carriage. She lowered her head to look at her hand, which was slightly red and swollen from being scratched by the reins. She then turned her head to look into the carriage. Mississippi. We're about to leave the city. Feng Manyun had wrapped herself in the quilt, and her hands and feet twitched from time to time. She scolded with a crooked mouth, hurry, hurry, hurry. Quickly leave the city, leave the city. Xiang Qin sighed and quickly whipped the horse, driving the carriage out of Beilan City. As soon as they left the city, they naturally arrived at a messy shanty town. Normally, Feng Manyun would still be patient enough to greet these people, but right now, she wasn't in the mood at all. Especially when she recalled how she had been forced to grovel in front of that little bitch several days ago under everyone's watchful eyes. Her face was filthy and her whole body was humiliated. It was as if her heart had been scalded by fire, and it couldn't help but burn. Chapter 768. Physician Feng, Physician Feng. The assistant manager in charge of the tent district's safety saw a carriage passing by him the moment he lifted the tent curtain. The carriage curtain was lifted by the wind, and when he saw Feng Manyun's face, he hastily chased up to stop the carriage. Xiang Qin could only helplessly stop the carriage. She shifted her gaze to the assistant manager and asked impatiently, Assistant manager, why are you blocking our Mrs. carriage? Physician Feng, it's truly great to see you. The assistant manager cheerfully called out, Physician Feng, quickly get off the carriage and take a look. Do you still remember the patient you visited a few nights ago? His condition seems to have worsened. Why don't you take a look again? Apologies, assistant manager, but we are in a hurry to return to Celestial Medicine Valley. Xiang Qin rolled her eyes at the assistant manager irritably and raised her horsewhip. Will you please make way? Tisk, that won't do. Physician Feng. How can you be like this? You have to go all the way to saving a person, right? The assistant manager tangled with the two people and blocked the carriage, unwilling to leave. As they spoke, many commoners also walked out of their tents to watch the commotion. Upon hearing that Physician Feng had come, the commoners all gathered around in great delight. Feng Manyun abruptly lifted the curtain, and her ghastly pale small face wrapped in the quilt abruptly appeared before the assistant manager. She abruptly cracked a crooked smile and shrieked at the assistant manager, Why are you so annoying? Scram! 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 The assistant manager was startled by Feng Manyun's malevolent appearance, and he subconsciously retreated 2 steps back. He smacked his lips in bewilderment and stammered, Physician Feng, why are you so angry? It's fine if you don't want to see him. Is there a need to treat him like this? The assistant manager grumbled before moving to the side in displeasure. Physician Feng, is it Physician Feng who came? At this time, a young woman suddenly rushed out of the tent in front and pounced to block Feng Manyun's carriage, wailing, Physician Feng, I beg you to take a look at my husband again. A few days ago, you said that he was already fine. But just now, he coughed up blood again. Dr. Feng, I beg you. Feng Manyun, who was wrapped in the bed's blankets, looked askew at that young woman. Suddenly, she leaned forward and screeched with a twisted expression, "Scram! Get the hell out of here! Get away from me, you piece of trash! Stupid woman! Unruly people! You only deserve to live in a pigsty like this for the rest of your life." Young miss, young miss. Xiang Qin was shocked. She hurriedly moved into the carriage from the driver's seat and went forward to cover her young miss' mouth. Xiang Qin turned her head and saw everyone's shocked expressions. She hurriedly waved her hand and said awkwardly, "Miss is also sick. Some of them are delirious. Don't force them. Hurry up and let us leave. I really didn't expect Dr. Feng to be such a person who fishes for fame. You were just pretending to be nice to us before, right? Ha, now you've completely revealed your true colors." The group of grannies and sisters-in-law who were originally greeting Feng Manyun with smiles in front of the carriage also turned around and returned to their tents in a huff. Feng Manyun, who was wrapped in a cotton blanket, watched everyone's departing figures sinisterly. Suddenly, she lifted the blanket and sneered at the assistant manager, "You! Take me there." Chapter 769. The assistant manager was naturally overjoyed that Feng Manyun suddenly changed her mind and wanted to see the patient, so he didn't fuss over her rude and unreasonable attitude anymore. Mississippi Xiangqin was the clearest about her miss's current state. Her mind was also a bit muddled from the stimulation she received a few days ago, and she still hadn't recovered yet. How could she still have the energy to see some patient? Feng Manyun arched her back as she got down from the carriage. The corners of her mouth and the tips of her eyes twitched unharmoniously, and she walked towards the tent in front of her with an aggressive and unreasonable expression. Underneath her sleeve was a slender silver needle dipped in poison. These lowly commoners actually dared to question her medical skills again and again. These lowly bastards should just die. Fine, weren't they questioning her? Ah! Weren't they thinking that her medical skills were inferior and couldn't treat people? Fine then. She would thoroughly kill that lowly commoner today and just let him die. Kill him, kill him. Kill him. A voice kept nagging at Feng Manyun in her mind. Feng Manyun's eyes and mouth were all crooked as she walked forward with her neck stretched out, looking like she was neurotic. Swish! Feng Manyun forcefully lifted the curtain in front of her, and the silver needle in her hand flashed under the sunlight. Roar! An enormous mouth that grinned all the way to his ears abruptly appeared in front of her. Before she could react, that person had already pounced at her and hugged her body with astonishing strength. The other party's iron-like hand clamped down on her left arm and bit down on it, chewing the flesh raw. Feng Manyun was in so much pain that she trembled all over. "Miss!" Xiangqin let out a heart-wrenching shriek. The young married woman also shrieked, "Hubby! Hey, don't go over! Don't go over!" The assistant manager reacted quickly and grabbed Xiangqin and the young woman. He took a few steps back and shouted, someone come quickly. Someone has mutated, someone has mutated. Ah, ah. Let go, let go, let go. Feng Manyun only felt that the other party had bitten off a chunk of flesh from her arm, and she was so frightened that she shuddered all over. The sturdy man howled at her small face, and with a crack, he actually broke Feng Manyun's left arm. "Ah, my hand, ah! Save me! Save me! Xiangqin, Xiangqin!" In the midst of Feng Manyun's panic, the silver needles in her hand had long fallen off somewhere. "Miss! Miss!" Xiangqin was eager to protect her master. She threw away the assistant manager's hand and casually picked up a wooden stick. With a loud shout, she smashed it towards the strong man's back. "Let go of Miss! Let go of Miss!" "Aw!" The brawny man let out a roar that sounded like a human, but not a human. He suddenly turned his head and stared fiercely at Xiangqin with his bulging eyes. Plop! After suddenly losing the brawny man's grip, Feng Manyun clutched the wound on her left arm and collapsed to the ground with a plop. The stench of urine wafted from her body. Xiang Qin hugged the rod and trembled like a sieve. She stared at the bulging eyes of the burly man and swallowed her saliva. Her forehead was covered in sweat as if she had just been fished up from a river. It was still the assistant manager who saw the opportunity and kicked Xiang Qin over, just in time to avoid the claw that the brawny man had pounced at her. The tent district's guards had already rushed over after hearing the news. Several dozen guards donned battle helmets and were fully armed with sabers, swords, and clubs as they surrounded this mutated brawny man at the edge of the tent. Chapter 770. How was this possible? How was this possible? This person clearly didn't die, so why did he suddenly mutate? He was still fine earlier. Feng Manyun, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground, subconsciously pulled down her tattered sleeve to cover up the wound on her left arm with all her might. Her severed arm drooped down, and the bite wound was excruciatingly painful. Feng Manyun barely propped herself up and crawled backwards. It's fine, she'll be fine. Feng Manyun slowly shrunk backwards with a face drenched in sweat and tears. Until a piercing voice rang beside her. Someone come quickly. Physician Feng was bitten by a zombie. No, I didn't, it's not. It's not a zombie, he's not a zombie. 5 to 6 burly men swarmed towards her and twisted her arm in reverse. They abruptly shoved her, pressing her face firmly against the filthy tent. Ah! Ah! Feng Manyun shrieked as if she had lost her mind, and she kept twisting her arm as she shouted sternly, "Let go of me, let go of me, let go of me. Let go of me. Be careful not to get scratched by her." The assistant manager's pupils contracted when he saw the woman's deranged state. Don't, assistant manager, don't. Xiang Qin hastily went up to tug at the assistant manager's arm. Let go of my miss. Miss is also a victim. You can't let go of her. Look at her arm. The women stared at Feng Manyun's left arm, which was dripping with blood continuously, in horror. Let go of me, you bunch of cursed idiots. Lowly people. How dare you treat me like this? I won't let you off. Feng Manyun shrieked viciously, and her arms kept twisting as she tried to break free from the burly men's control. Bang! One of the burly men decisively punched her on the head. Feng Manyun's head tilted, and her eyeballs rolled around. She only felt her vision darken, and she gradually lost consciousness as she slumped into the crook of a burly man's arm. Tie her up first. The assistant manager directed those burly men to find several sturdy ropes to bind Feng Manyun. Xiang Qin was bawling her eyes out, and she knelt before the assistant manager with disheveled hair. Assistant manager, I beg you, please don't harm our miss. Xiang Qin, your miss has already been bitten by a zombie. She'll mutate very soon and become like that person. The assistant manager's face was filled with horror as he pointed at the mutated man who was being guarded by dozens of heavily armored guards. She won't. Miss won't lose her mind. Young Miss will be fine, assistant manager, you have to believe me. Miss is one of the top 50 physicians in the Celestial Medical Valley. She will definitely be able to cure herself. Xiang Qin scrambled to the vice manager's feet and hugged his leg as she cried out, Before we left the valley this time, Mrs. Master gave Miss a profound-grade medicinal pill that can cure all kinds of illnesses. Assistant manager, Miss her, assistant manager. Her. A black rank pill was a legendary item, and it could be considered the treasure of every major pill house. As expected of Celestial Medicine Valley, any random disciple could possess a black rank pill. Even members of the pill union might not necessarily possess this kind of black rank pill. Xiang Qin wiped away the tears on her cheeks with her sleeve and nodded repeatedly. It's true, assistant manager. I'm not lying to you, it's true. Miss has a black rank pill on her, she does. Chapter 771. The assistant manager couldn't help but be skeptical. Where is that black rank pill right now? I can't say where it is, but as long as you wake Miss up and let Miss take this black rank pill, then she will definitely be fine, Xiangqin said with certainty. The assistant manager had people restrain the trussed up Feng Mannion first. Although you say this, for safety's sake, I can't completely believe your words for the time being. Let's tie her up first. Assistant manager. Xiangqin creased her brows and was about to speak when two sturdy women went up and grabbed her arms. Behave yourself. Roar. In the open space next to the tent, the mutated burly man was tied up by several dozen guards with 3 to 4 arm-thick ropes, and he roared furiously at the sky. The city lord's estate's guards each held a rope firmly in their hands, and they simultaneously exerted their strength with a roar to restrain the burly man's movements. The mutated burly man roared several times as he tugged at the ropes around his limbs with all his might. He raised his hands above his head and opened his huge mouth to roar. 7 to 8 heavily armored city lords' estate's guards were actually lifted up by the strength of his arms. Their feet abruptly left the ground, and they flailed about with shocked expressions. The remaining dozen or so guards instantly tightened the ropes around their arms, and they were dragged forward several steps by the mutated burly man's brute force. Their feet were firmly hooked to the ground, and they scraped up thick sand marks. Roar! The mutated burly man raised his head and roared furiously. Suddenly, he pulled over a nearby guard and snapped him into two, kicking him to the side like trash. Husband! The young woman's vision darkened, and she fainted on the spot from fright. During this tug and pull, several armored city lords' estate's guards were no match for the mutated burly man's boundless strength, and they were pulled to the side and piled together like a human pyramid. The assistant manager hastily had people bring out bows and arrows while muttering, "Release the arrows, release the arrows, release the arrows." Swish, swish, swish. Several iron arrowheads pierced through the burly man's body, but the burly man didn't feel any pain. Instead, such an action angered him even more. An inhuman roar came from his mouth, and he suddenly raised his left arm. Several guards of the city lord's mansion followed the force of his pull and pounced over. They were about to pounce on the burly man and be torn to pieces. Suddenly, a silver light flashed across the sky and pierced into the mutated brawny man's left eye with a swoosh, causing a terrifying hissing sound. The mutated man raised his head and roared as he staggered back a few steps. In the blink of an eye, a black figure suddenly stopped at the top of the tent. With a slight stomp of his feet, he leapt towards the mutated brawny man's head. Swoosh! The sword landed on the mutant man's neck, which was as hard as steel. This slash actually produced sparks from the collision. Young hero, be careful. The assistant manager stretched out his hand and shouted with a greatly changed expression. However, the newcomer turned a deaf ear to his shout and directly pulled out the long sword that was half embedded in the brawny man's neck. The sword was covered in a layer of pure white profound light, and the sword in his hand quickly swept across the brawny man's neck. Ah! The mutated brawny man let out an unpleasant blood-curdling scream, and his entire body suddenly fell backwards, heavily smashing into the ground. In a short moment, his head fell from his neck and was sliced into 4 or 5 pieces by the sword in the black-clothed youth's hand. Clap, clap, clap. 2 or 3 scattered claps came from behind the crowd. You're already 22, but you still haven't gotten married. Just look at the entire capital. How many old ladies are there like you? I'm going to beat you to death with your cheap mouth. Hui Ling's expression abruptly changed, and she raised her hand to slap Wu Xiao-en, who was behind Sixth Zheng. Chapter 773. Sixth Zheng suddenly raised his hand and pushed his scabbard in front of Hui Ling, blocking her punch. He gazed at her coldly and said softly, not competing. Sixth Zheng, it's not like we're scared of them. A trace of unwillingness flitted across Wu Xiao-en's chubby face. Besides, we have you, so why should we be scared of them? Don't want to compete. Sixth Zheng withdrew his scabbard and turned to leave. Hui Ling abruptly shot forward to block his path, her willowy eyebrows furrowing as she reprimanded, Sixth Zheng, what do you mean? Are you looking down on our flying rock operation team? Sigh, I'm just looking down on you guys. Wu Xiaoen's words made Hui Ling want to slap his cheap mouth again. Sixth Zheng glared coldly at Wu Xiaoen, causing him to shrink his neck and retreat back into the team. Miss Hui, we still have other important matters to attend to on this trip. Sixth Zheng's bright black gaze landed on Hui Ling's face, causing the latter to blush slightly as she guiltily avoided his gaze. Yo, Hui Ling, your face is all red, he ha ha ha. Wu Xiaoen, who had a cheap mouth, reverted to his old ways and laughed loudly. It can't be that you still have some unrealistic thoughts about our sixth young master even now, right? You aren't married at such an old age, so it can't be that you're foolishly waiting for our sixth young master to grow up, right? Ha 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 ha. This is too hilarious. You're a full 5 years older than sixth young master. You're an old lady, yet you're still thinking about sixth young master, who is in his prime. Why don't you go home and look in the mirror? Go to hell, Wu Xiaoen, you lowly wretch. See if I can't kill you. Hui Ling threw a cold saber at Wu Xiaoen's mouth. Sixth Zheng suddenly reached out, grabbing the laughing Wu Xiaoen and irritably slapping the back of his head. Enough nonsense. When the assistant manager saw that these two teams were about to come to blows, he hastily led people forward to stop them. Everyone, please calm down, calm down. You're the manager here, right? We want to enter the city. Hui Ling took her saber and roared at the assistant manager in humiliation. Ah. Everyone, my apologies. Bailon City is currently under martial law, and the city gates only open once a day. If you want to enter the city, you have to wait until tomorrow morning. So troublesome. Hui Ling hugged her saber and walked away angrily. Second brother, I want a separate tent. Tisk, Wu Xiaoen pursed his lips. There are many ugly people. Hui Fan swept a cold glance at Wu Xiaoen, who promptly rubbed his chin and sneakily hid behind Sixth Zheng. Hui Fan cupped his fists and saluted Sixth Zheng absent-mindedly. Sixth Zheng returned the salute and calmly watched the members of Operation Peng leave. Sixth Zheng, after we resupply in the city, we still have to continue with the mission. Wu Xiaoen muttered, who would have thought that you, the sixth young master of the Zheng estate, would have to go out on missions to earn your living expenses. You reap what you sow, it's only right. Sixth Zheng sheathed his sword on his back and turned to walk towards the assistant manager to inquire about accommodations. Inside Bailon City's yellow pole breeding farm. When Hong Yawei and the others were forcefully dragged by City Lord Lin to the embankment of the field, they saw the Crown Prince and Crown Princess smiling at each other as they stood in the middle of a patch of bright yellow pole field. At this time, Hong Yawei already couldn't be bothered to look at how pleasing this handsome man and beautiful woman were to his eyes. He gaped with a stupefied expression as he dazedly looked at the suddenly ripe yellow pole field. He practically rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Chapter 774. How was that possible? It was impossible. According to their breeding records, it would take at least 8 to 9 days for this yellow pole field to reach the half-ripened stage. But it suddenly ripened today. Didn't they find it too strange? Hong Yawei abruptly turned to look at City Lord Lin, only to see that Lin Yongyi also looked like he had seen a ghost. City Lord Lin, didn't you say that my junior sister ruined the yellow pole field? When Lin Yongyi came to find him just now, it was as if he had seen his father's murderer. He pounced on him and gave him a few punches without any explanation, beating him until the corners of his eyes were swollen. But now, wasn't it the greatest irony that the yellow pole field looked like it had a bountiful harvest? Lin Yongyi also subconsciously wiped his eyes. He hastily got off the ground and scooped up a handful of soil. After examining the yellow poles, he couldn't resist laughing with tears in his eyes. Alright, this is great. City Lord Lin, what's going on? Hong Yaowei turned to look suspiciously in Arbor and Mo Yen's direction. On the way here, he had already heard that it was the crown princess who had skillfully cured the symptoms of the edelweiss in their bodies. He also heard that she had also cured the lethal poison left behind by his junior sister, Feng Manyun, in the well. Hong Yaowei was filled with shock and suspicion. The poison in his junior sister's hands must have been brought out from Celestial Medicine Valley. It was an extremely poisonous substance. Even so, this crown prince consort was able to resolve it so easily. It could be seen that her medical skills were brilliant. The scariest thing was that he suspected that this crown princess might have some spirit herb that could accelerate the growth of plants. Thus, she could ripen the entire yellow pole field overnight. Unfortunately, City Lord Lin ignored him and didn't have the intention to explain to him. He simply threw himself into the yellow pole field and shouted while crying and laughing. After going through numerous trials and tribulations, this batch of yellow pole field finally ripened. Prince Mo grasped the little girl's small hand tightly and whispered into her ear, "You can't tell anyone about the sacred soil." A small pinch of sacred soil plus the watering of sacred water could actually revive nearly 10 mu of yellow pole field, resulting in such a bountiful harvest. Naturally, he couldn't let others know about such an eye-opening sacred object. Otherwise, it would be like the holy water, attracting covetous eyes and causing unnecessary trouble. Xiao Mu tilted her small head and nodded in understanding. The sacred land was in seclusion. Other than the sacred land in her hands, she didn't have anything else. After all, she still hadn't completely fused with the earth essence. If she could fuse with it like the holy water, she would be able to control the water and soil on her own. It would be much more convenient for her to plant anything. The little fellow looked up and whispered to him, "Mo Yen, tell me what you want to plant in the future. I'll secretly put some holy soil in the ground and water it. When the time comes, you'll get whatever you want. It can also completely improve the quality of the soil, accelerate the harvest, and increase the yield." Mo Yen was in a good mood as she reached out to pinch the little girl's tender cheeks. She reached out and hugged her. "My baby is really amazing. If the little guy had a tail, it would definitely be wagging it left and right." He said proudly, "Of course. Don't joke around." This was the power of the sacred land and holy water, the origin of the 5 spirits. It was just planting something, how could it not be easy? Mo Yen couldn't help but laugh. He carried her and walked out of the field ridge. He whispered in her ear, "I'll get someone to collect this piece of land and plant another batch." While the effects of the sacred land and holy water hadn't completely disappeared, let the yellow pole seeds also freeload with great nourishment in the next round. Chapter 775. If his guess wasn't wrong, after the improvement of the sacred earth and sacred water, the yellow stalks planted in this 10 mu of farmland could be shortened by at least 1/3. Moreover, they didn't need to find a commissioner to take care of the farmland anymore. They only needed to send several honest farmers to be responsible for irrigating the fields regularly, so they basically didn't need to expend any effort. When the crown prince revealed this news to City Lord Lin, Lin Yongyi cried tears of joy again. This was great news. City Lord Lin. Hong Yaowei questioned with a grim face, "What exactly is going on? Why is the yellow stalk field?" "Guards!" Lin Yongyi suddenly hollered, and the guards of the city lord's estate immediately swarmed over and bowed to await his order. "Break this person's limbs and throw him out of the farm immediately." Lin Yongyi bellowed while pointing at Hong Yaowei with a solemn expression. "Lin Yongyi, you dare!" Hong Yaowei was so anxious that his eyes had turned red, and he was forced to kneel on the ground. Hong Yaowei shrieked, "Lin Yongyi, I'm from Celestial Medicine Valley. Lin Yongyi, you bastard, you actually dared to lay your hands on me. I'm from the Mo Kingdom capital's Hung Estate. You dare, you dare. Ah! Smack! A staff smashed heavily into Hong Yaowei's back. Hong Yaowei was only an ordinary physician, so wouldn't he fall to the ground while spitting out blood and foaming at the mouth from this strike? Your junior sister, Feng Manyun, is vicious and wants to kill everyone in the entire farm. Don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame that good junior sister of yours. People like you simply don't deserve to be physicians. Break his limbs for me. Make sure they can't practice medicine and harm people in the future. Lin Yongyi waved his hand resentfully, leaving behind a group of vicious subordinates to furiously smash Hong Yaowei's limbs. A quarter of an hour later, a crippled and blood-soaked person was carried out of the farm and thrown out of the door, leaving him to fend for himself. Lin Yongyi. Feng Manyun. You're the ones who harmed me. Hong Yaowei couldn't conceal the hatred in his eyes. His body trembled as he crawled forward, dragging out a long trail of blood on the ground. Suddenly, a black shadow landed beside him. Hong Yaowei raised his head to look, but before he could see the person's face clearly, his neck was slit by a sharp sword. The night was quiet, and the moon was as clear as water. Mo Yen sat sideways on the edge of the bed and reached out to pat the little one on the bed. Under the illumination of the moonlight, the little fellow hugged the chubby little white squirrel and fell into a deep slumber. The window frame moved slightly. Mo Yen reached out to help her tuck in the corner of the quilt. He got up and walked towards the door. With a flick of his sleeve, the candle flame followed his figure and gradually went out. Your Highness, Hong Yaowei has already been cleaned up. Huifeng cupped his hands and murmured. Yes. Mo Yen responded indifferently. She raised her hand and gently closed the door. I want the information of everyone in the Hong family. Yes. Lin Yongyi is benevolent and righteous, but he is not decisive enough. Choose someone to support him. Yes. Huifeng nodded slightly and watched as the crown prince left. He then turned to glance at the side room, and shortly after, he disappeared into the night with a single breath. Cuckoo. A black shadow glided across the night sky and sank into the moonlit night. The sleeping arbor seemed to have stirred and abruptly opened his eyes. He stared coldly at the muslin canopy above his head and stared blankly for a while. He abruptly jumped down from the bed barefoot. He arrived at the edge of the bed in a flash and gently lifted the curtain with his fingers. His gaze was clear as he gazed at the hazy night outside. Chapter 776. Under the night sky, a short and small figure stealthily crept up to the wooden prisoner carriage. Suddenly, she threw herself in front of the pillar and called out softly, Mississippi, Xiangqin, Xiangqin. Hurry and untie my ropes. Xiangqin heaved a sigh of relief and glanced at the 2 to 3 guards who had long fallen unconscious on the ground. She hastily went up and reached her hands through the wooden cage, hastily peeling off the ropes on Feng Manyun's body. Miss, where did you put your black rank pill? Hurry and take it out and consume it. Right, right. My black rank pill, my black rank pill. Feng Manyun, who was sitting in the prisoner carriage, quickly took out a small round porcelain bottle from her chest pocket. She poured out that life-saving black rank pill and swallowed it in one gulp. Miss, these guards have all been knocked unconscious by me. They're fine now. Xiangqin, find the key and quickly release me. After the master and servant busied themselves for a while, Xiangqin finally took out the key to open the lock and helped Feng Manyun down from the prisoner carriage. Miss, is your arm all right? What could be wrong with me? Xiangqin's words seemed to have triggered an abnormal nerve in Feng Manyun, and she immediately wanted to howl loudly. Xiangqin hastily reached out to gag Feng Manyun's mouth. Miss, don't make a fuss. My medicine is only enough to knock out these people. If the assistant manager and the rest are summoned, we won't be able to escape. Feng Manyun quieted down and muttered to herself, as if she was talking to herself, but also as if she was consoling herself, I'm fine, my arm will be fine. That isn't a zombie at all, he hasn't undergone a zombie transformation. I will definitely be able to treat it myself, I can treat it. Miss, our carriage is over there. I'll help you over. Let's hurry and leave. No matter what injury it is, when we return to Celestial Medicine Valley, the old Valley Master will definitely take care of it. That's right. Feng Manyun nodded repeatedly neurotically before turning to Xiangqin with a dazed gaze. Xiangqin, when I return to Celestial Medicine Valley, I will definitely reward you well. Miss, I'm relieved as long as you're fine. The master and servant pair stealthily crept to their original carriage. Just as they were about to board, Feng Manyun raised her head neurotically and vigilantly gazed at the horizon. After a gurgling sound, something seemed to glide across the sky. Miss, it's only a few nighthawks. Don't worry, we can leave this place very soon. Xiangqin helped Feng Manyun into the carriage. Just as Feng Manyun bent over and lifted the curtain, she saw a contorted and stiff face abruptly closing in on her with its mouth wide open. Half an eyeball actually fell out of its socket, and its empty eye sockets stared fixedly at Feng Manyun. Ah! Feng Manyun rolled out of the carriage in fright. Her originally injured arm snapped again with a crack from this toss. 3 or 4 strange people with stiff and twisted expressions crawled out of the car one after another, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they pounced at the master and servant. Go away, go away. Xiangqin screeched as she picked up a wooden stick and smashed it fiercely at the 2 strange people pouncing over. At the same time, screams and yells continuously rang out from several tents. The tent district was in a mess, and countless people rushed out of their tents in bewilderment. Light the lanterns, quickly light the lanterns. The assistant manager jumped out of his tent and shouted loudly. See you tomorrow. Chapter 777. What's going on? When the City Lord Manor's guards lit their torches and the assistant manager saw the scene in the shed area, he couldn't help but be shocked, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Only to see that the entire shed area was in chaos. Mutated people with stiff bodies and slow movements were everywhere, biting and tearing at the ordinary civilians they caught. Assistant manager, assistant manager. Not good. A guard hurriedly reported, I don't know what's going on, but a portion of the injured people have all mutated. The injured people collectively mutated, this kind of thing had never been heard of before. This caught everyone off guard. Everyone was caught off guard. Everyone was caught off guard. Many of the people living in the shed area were operation teams that went out to do missions. According to the rules, they had to stay in the shed area for 3 to 5 days before they could enter the city. Therefore, when the shed area became chaotic, the operation team members were the first to run out of their tents, spontaneously forming a battle line, and at the same time going forward to encircle and annihilate the mutated people. Of course, there were 1 or 2 operation teams that were caught off guard and attacked by their own team members. Hui Fan's Flying Rock operation team was one of the teams that were attacked by their own team members. Hui Ling's eyes were red, staring at 2 of her own team members who were firmly pressed down on the ground, constantly howling and howling, as if they had completely lost their mind. She cried and scolded, how can it be like this? Our team didn't encounter any corpse puppets these few days. The injury on Old Hu's leg was clearly scraped by the earth thorns, how can it be like this? He's clearly almost recovered. Press him down. Hui Fan raised his sword and strode forward, grabbing the hair of the team member who was howling non-stop. The sword in his hand didn't hesitate at all as he slashed towards Old Hu's neck. Captain. Second brother. He has lost his mind. He's mutated. Leaving him alive will only harm us. Hui Fan's eyes were scarlet, he roared and decisively chopped off Old Hu's head. The rest of the Flying Rock operation team members all cried out. How can it be like this? Hui Ling's tears were like a broken string of pearls, rolling down. Be careful not to get hurt. Hui Fan tightly clenched his fists, the veins on his neck popping out. I don't know, I don't know why it's like this. But this situation, I don't think it's an exception. In short, pay attention to protect yourself. Those who had profound armaments had all activated their defensive barriers. If you don't have a Xian artifact, put on your armor. Everyone, pay attention. Boom. The tent door was suddenly broken by someone, and a gust of cold wind suddenly poured in. Roar. A few mutated humans with bulging eyeballs rushed in, baring their fangs. Their eyes were slightly bloodshot. Clang. One of the body cultivators smashed the metal rod in his hand into the face of one of the mutants without hesitation. The mutated human flew out and crashed into another person. Then, he rolled on the ground and roared as he pounced forward. The tent was torn apart by Hui Fan's sword, and the 12 surviving members of the Flying Rock Squad all stood back to back, fending off the mutants that were pouncing on them from all directions. Why are all these people mutated? The assistant manager cried out in shock. Quick, quick! Ring the bell to warn the inner city. Quick! Assistant manager. Deputy manager, a large group of people has appeared on the road ahead, and they are heading towards our city gate. Let us enter the city, let us enter the city. A group of frightened commoners rushed towards the city gate in a panic. Chapter 778. They were too scared that a perfectly fine tent district would suddenly be filled with terrifying monsters. The common people only wanted to live, so they all rushed toward the city gate. Their emotions were surging and somewhat out of control, and everyone let out cries of alarm. Sixth Zheng lifted the tent flap and pierced the zombie that suddenly appeared in front of him with his sword. The long sword passed through its throat, emitting a gurgling sound. He pulled out his sword. There were no bloodstains on it, only some mud-like unknown substance. Sixth young master, save me. The slightly plump Wu Xiao staggered and fell flat on his face. He got up, pulled up his pants, and strode towards Sixth Zheng. Just as he reached Sixth young master, Wu Xiao stepped on a round log and kowtowed in front of Sixth young master with a thud. The corner of Sixth Zheng's mouth twitched. He stepped forward and lifted him up. Wu Xiao tugged at his belt, cutting a sorry figure. It looked like he had been badly frightened by the zombie that suddenly attacked. He didn't know if he was unlucky or lucky, but when he went out to pee in the middle of the night, he drowsily heard a strange gnawing sound. Halfway through peeing, he turned around and saw a bloody mouth open at him. Wu Xiao was so frightened that his 3 souls and 7 spirits flew away. He even freaking peed on his hand. He didn't even have time to pull up his pants before running to Sixth young master for help. Sixth young master. So scary. What's going on? Wu Xiao asked through chattering teeth. Where are the others? Sixth young master. Sixth young master. Wu Xiao's Earth Dragon operation team had a total of 17 members. Including him and Sixth young master, there were only 13 people who ran out of the tent. Where are those 4 people? Wu Xiao roared as he pulled up his pants. The 4 of them are. A female team member wept and hung her head. Fuck. Wu Xiao was so angry that he threw away half of his belt and casually tied a knot on his pants. What are you crying for? Fuck these guys. Fuck them to death. However, Wu Xiao's cool didn't last more than 3 seconds. Move, 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 move. Everyone move aside. At this time, a group of people clustered around a tall and handsome young master in snow-white clothes and a fox fur coat. Behind these people was a group of fleeing commoners, no less than 500 to 600 people. This way, there were even more people in the tent district. It's second Do. It is second young master Do. A few short exclamations came from Wu Xiao's side. The members of the Earth Dragon operation all looked at the young man in the snow-white robe in disbelief. Wu Xiao instantly cowered and hid behind Sixth Zheng. This second young Master Do, who was renowned throughout the capital for being brimming with talent, reportedly resided in Celestial Medicine Valley all year round. Why would he appear at Bailon City's city gate today? Mingling in the crowd, Feng Manyun, who was using a piece of sackcloth to wrap her severed arm and half cover her head, also clearly saw this second young Sir Do, and she couldn't help but tremble all over. "Miss, why did young Sir come?" Xiangqin's pupils also contracted slightly, and she leaned close to Feng Manyun to ask in a low voice. This was the disciple that the old valley master was most proud of. It was said that he was the most promising person to become the next valley master of the Celestial Medicine Valley. Normally, Feng Manyun would only glance at him from afar. With her seniority and ranking, she simply wasn't allowed to get close to this young sir. The old valley master's granddaughter has also come. Feng Manyun slowly shrank into the crowd. "You are this place's manager?" Wenren Ningjing tilted her head and gazed innocently at the assistant manager, whose forehead was drenched in sweat. Open the city gate. Chapter 779. Clang clang clang. The warning bell rang, and everyone in the city was startled awake from their dreams. Mo Yen hurriedly put on her clothes and sprinted into her room in Arbor First. She couldn't help but be startled when she pushed open the door to take a look. The little lady had long finished dressing up. Under the waning light, she slowly turned her head around. Her white gown appeared elegant and natural under the moonlight. On the other side, City Lord Lin's eyelids were twitching wildly as he crawled out of bed. He hurriedly put on his clothes before rushing to the city gate. When he climbed up the city gate tower to take a look, his eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets. The entire shed district was rather chaotic. Originally, there were close to 1,000 people squeezed into the shed district, and now, with the several hundred commoners that Second Do had brought over, the passageway was almost full. Countless people crowded at the city gate, wailing, "Open the city gate! Open the city gate! Open the city gate!" A man carrying his old mother on his back shouted as he banged his head against the sturdy city gate. "City Lord, I beg you to be merciful. Let my child enter the city, City Lord." Lin Yongyi was a benevolent person to begin with, and he couldn't bear to see this kind of scene the most. Even his eyes were a bit red. However, he still had a trace of reason in the end. After hurriedly asking the soldiers guarding the city, he found out that the entire shed district had encountered an unforeseen event. All of the injured had actually mutated into zombies. As the city lord, not only did he have to empathize with the lives of these commoners outside the city, he also had to protect the lives of the several tens of thousands of people inside the city. "City Lord." Old Man Sun said gravely, "I'll send people to step up patrols inside the city. If the injured can all mutate into zombies while still alive? Then what about inside the city? Who knew if someone in the city had mutated after suffering a minor injury for no reason?" Alarmed, Lin Yongyi hurriedly nodded and said, "Hurry, hurry. City Lord, for some reason, there is a large group of zombies 5 kilometers away heading towards Bailon City." Second Do's deep and calm voice slowly rang out under the night sky. "City Lord should quickly open the city gate and let these innocent commoners in." Lin Yongyi's expression changed in alarm, and he clenched his fists. "Is this true?" While Second Do was speaking, many small squads were currently fighting with the mutated people in the shed district outside the city. The defenseless civilians huddled together as much as possible to prevent themselves from being scratched by the zombies that suddenly pounced on them. "I'm not lying. What are you nagging about, old man? Hurry and open the city gates." Wenren Ningjing was so anxious that she stomped her feet. "As the city lord, you're responsible for the lives of the people. Are you going to watch as your people are torn to shreds by the corpse puppets?" Lin Yongyi's lips drooped as he clenched his fists. "No. We can't open the city gates. How would I know if any of these people had been scratched by the corpse puppet? Is there anyone mutating? If we let them rush into the city, wouldn't they bring disaster to all the people in the city? You damned old man. Wenren Ningjing pointed at the city gate tower and cursed, the people inside are people, but aren't the people outside? How can you bear to watch them die without doing anything? Lin Yongyi stiffened his neck and turned his head. I can't make the decision on this matter. Then tell the one who can make the decision to come out. Next to Wenren Ningjing, an arrogant and bossy girl shouted angrily. Your Highness! Your Highness! Greetings to your Highness! Greetings came one after another from below the city gate tower. It wasn't until Mo Yen's figure appeared on the city gate tower that Lin Yongyi wiped the sweat on his forehead and bowed towards Mo Yen with a wry smile. Your Highness. Chapter 780. It was already late at night. Arbor was draped in an ice-silk mink fur cloak, a small hand-warmer tucked in her sleeve. She slowly followed Mo Yen up the city gate tower. She glanced down the city gate tower, but her gaze was fixed on one spot, and her small hand involuntarily gripped the brick. Arbor's eyes suddenly brightened, and she muttered, Little Six. Among the crowd, the black-clothed youth's figure appeared extremely vigorous and outstanding. A long sword danced in his hand, chopping, slashing, and stabbing. His sword pierced the space between a corpse puppet's brows, and his body lightly leapt up, agile as a swimming dragon, his figure like a demon. After a few leaps, the youth had already arrived at a fatty's side, helping him block a corpse puppet that pounced from the side. The fatty broke out in a cold sweat, hastily reaching out to subconsciously grab at his slipping pants. He turned to Sixth Zheng and nodded gratefully. Sixth young master, many thanks. Jojo. Mo Yen didn't look at anyone else, her gaze landing on Arbor. Naturally, she immediately discovered her abnormality. Following her gaze, she saw a youth with decent skills, and her slender brows furrowed slightly. Arbor's gaze fixed on the youth with fluttering ink-black hair, and the corners of her lips involuntarily curled up. She truly didn't expect to see Little Six in this kind of situation. Seeing him live so energetically, she didn't know what to think. Jojo? Alarm bells rang in Prince Mo's mind. What was going on? Jojo's eyes seemed to be glowing as he stared at that youth. This kind of Jojo was rarely seen. He had never seen Jojo's eyes light up when he stared at someone. It was as if he had discovered some kind of treasure. Arbor turned her head in confusion and met the Crown Prince's eyes. At this time, second young Master Do's voice came from below the city gate tower. Do Fenghua greets your highness the Crown Prince. Only then did Prince Mo's gaze shift to below the city gate tower, indifferently sweeping over second Do's face. So it's the Do family's second son. Do family? Arbor was slightly startled. He quickly turned his gaze to Do Fenghua. It was a handsome young man dressed in plain white clothes. He had a graceful bearing and a noble temperament. It seemed to be quite different from the barbaric and shameless Do family in her impression. Why? Your Highness. Please open the city gates and let the people outside the city in. Second Do cupped his hands in salute and hastened to plead, if this Do's guess is correct, a large group of corpse puppets will surge over in about the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. Even though you're pleading for the people and everything you say is true, I'm afraid that you're wrong. However, my view is the same as the city lord's. Mo Yen said indifferently, before confirming that these people are not infected, no one is allowed to enter the city. Your Highness. Cries could be heard from outside the city. Your Highness, please save us. Your Highness. Wenren Ningjing and one of her sisters beside her stomped their feet in anger, pointing at Mo Yen and cursing. What kind of country's heir apparent are you? You look on helplessly as your people suffer outside. What right do you have to be the Crown Prince? Shut up. Arbor's gaze turned cold as she angrily shouted. Her crisp voice, wrapped in a deterrent force, immediately suppressed all the chaotic clamor. Everyone raised their heads and looked at her in a daze. You're not allowed to slander the crown prince. You're even more not allowed to scold him. Arbor pointed at Wenren Ningjing and Wenren Ningjing, her gaze suddenly stern. Chapter 781. Who are you? Wenren Ningjing shouted, her eyebrows furrowed. You don't have the right to know. Arbor raised his hand with a cold expression, and the crow-repeating crossbow extended from his sleeve, suddenly aiming in Wenren Ningjing's direction. What are you doing? Wenren Ningjing cried out in alarm, hugging her head and shrinking her neck. She only felt a rush of wind blow past her ear, and the arrow seemed to have hit something in an instant, and the sound of something falling to the ground came from behind her. Wenren Ningjing turned her head and finally saw clearly. It turned out that one of the commoners in the group had already quietly mutated, grabbing towards the back of her head. However, he was sent flying by an arrow from the little girl on the city gate tower, directly piercing through his head, making him deader than he could be. The city gate tower was at least 300 meters away from here. With this kind of arm strength and eyesight, it instantly caused the area outside the city gate tower to be so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. Look at you motley crew, stray dogs. You actually have the face to scold others. Turn around and take a look. How many of you are actually fighting? Arbor sneered with extreme mockery. If you were the crown prince, you'd probably be so scared that you wouldn't even dare to go up the city gate tower. Prince Mo turned to look at his Jojo with a grin. The little girl's wholehearted protection caused the trace of displeasure that had arisen in His Highness the Crown Prince's heart to instantly fly away. Look, his Jojo was the most protective of him. Your Highness, it was this Do who didn't think things through. Do Fenghua recovered his wits and hurriedly said, but there are close to 10,000 zombies gathered nearby. If we don't open the city gate, then... Do you think this is feasible? Time is of the essence right now, and we can't check them one by one. Would your Highness please open up an independent area in the city and let all of us enter first before checking them one by one? Your Highness can send some guards to watch us. This way, if there are any unexpected situations, we can react in time. 10,000 zombies. Second young Master Do's words startled City Lord Lin so much that he immediately jumped up. Second young Master Do, are you speaking the truth? Only more, not less. Second Do raised his head to look at Prince Mo. May your Highness please make a decision. Looks like there'll be a bloody battle today. Mo Lien said coldly. Second Do, your suggestion is also pertinent. Let's do that for now. Lin Yongyi. Thank you, your Highness. Second Do let out a sigh of relief and turned to look at Wenren Ningjing. Yes, your Highness. Lin Yongyi immediately ordered 300 soldiers to descend from the city gate tower. Then, he ordered people to turn the winch and pull open the city gate. He drove the commoners outside the city to a small plaza near the city gate tower to watch over them. Miss, are we going in or not? Xiang Qin was confused. Previously, they had risked their lives to get out of the city. Who would have thought that they would have to return to the city in less than a night? What the hell was he doing? Are you stupid? Of course we have to enter. Feng Manyun casually picked up a cloak and wrapped herself inside, twitching slightly with a contorted face. She didn't want to stay outside the city to be torn apart and eaten raw by those ugly zombies. Miss, but what if someone discovers your injuries? Stop talking nonsense. Let's go in first. Enter the city. After Sixth Zheng cleaned up the last zombie beside him, he grabbed the hand of a team member next to him and pushed him into the crowd. Second Do and Wenren Ningjing's group also stood at the back of the crowd, not in a hurry to enter the city. At this time, when their gazes met, Second young Master Do nodded at Sixth Zheng. Sixth young Master Zheng. Chapter 782. Sixth Zheng cast a sidelong glance at second young Master Do before nodding slightly in agreement. Suddenly, a very tall and sturdy zombie darted out from behind a dilapidated tent where Sixth Zheng was standing, pouncing towards Sixth Zheng's head like a tiger. The distance was too close for Sixth Zheng to react in time. Wenren Ningjing hastily pulled second young Master Do's arm and hastily retreated several steps, shouting, "Senior brother, be careful." Actually, that zombie was still some distance away from second young Master Do. Moreover, it was pouncing in Sixth Zheng's direction, so it couldn't harm her senior brother at all. If Wenren Ningjing was willing to help sixth young Master Do, his crisis would be resolved immediately. However, Wenren Ningjing only had eyes for her senior brother and no one else. Boom! In the nick of time, an arrow from the city gate tower directly pierced through the zombie's head, nailing it to the tent behind it. The night wind assaulted the city gate tower. A plain-clothed figure was elegant and exquisite, her figure snowy and icy. Separated by the boundless night, Sixth Zheng turned his head and gazed into the depths of the little girl's ice-cold eyes. Those were a pair of clear and emotionless eyes. They were like two deep, dry wells, without ripples or waves, expressionless like a wooden carving. For some reason, Sixth Zheng felt his heart twitch slightly, as if something had been triggered. When he wanted to take another look, he saw that the little girl's figure had already disappeared from the city gate tower. Everyone rushed into the city, and the soldiers dispatched by Lin Yongyi hurried to the small plaza. Everyone followed the flow into the city, except for two people who came against the flow. Arbor released several crow-gold arrows with his crow-repeating crossbow, instantly sending several zombies baring their fangs and brandishing their claws after the crowd flying. It was truly killing one person every 10 steps. His expression was as cold as frost. Everyone who passed by the crown prince and the little girl stopped in their tracks in a daze and looked at them blankly. Then, they were pushed by the people behind them and ran with the flow. Second Do, Sixth Zheng, and the others were the last to enter the city gate. At the same time, under Lin Yongyi's loud shout, the city guards had already started turning the capstan in the opposite direction again, closing the heavy city gate once more. After Sixth Zheng dragged the panting Wu Xiao and jumped through the city gates, the last zombie was shot out of the city by Arbor's crow-gold arrow, and the city gates slowly closed. Sixth Zheng panted slightly, and his somewhat dazed gaze met Arbor's expressionless little face. Little Six. Xiao Mu slowly lowered the arm that was holding the crow-repeating crossbow, her gaze fixated on the bewildered Sixth Zheng, and her lips curled into a smile that had been missing for a long time. Mo Yen was startled. She immediately stepped forward and reached out to grasp Arbor's slightly cold hand. Her scrutinizing gaze then fell on Sixth Zheng's face. Her looks were considered top-notch, and her skills were passable. However, Duan Yu, Situ Yi, and even those two from the Qin family were all very outstanding people, yet he had never seen his JoJo show such a tender and affectionate expression toward any of them. She even directly and intimately called him Little Sixth. What was going on with this gaze that clearly carried a trace of reminiscence? Mo Yen was very certain that this was her darling's first time seeing this sixth young Master Zhang. However, what the hell was this inexplicable sense of familiarity between the two of them? This caused the crown prince's heart to fluctuate wildly, as if it was being scratched by a cat. He looked at sixth young Master Zhang as if he was facing a great enemy. Crown Princess. Hui Feng also glanced at Arbor in astonishment. Chapter 783. Arbor snapped out of her daze and finally realized that her behavior was a bit strange. Little Six must have also thought that she was quite strange. She then collected her thoughts and switched to an expressionless face. Arbor nodded and said, "Time to sleep." Hui Feng. Crown Princess, your ability to forcefully change the topic is improving. What time is it now, yet you're still thinking about sleeping? Can you sleep? Your Highness. City Lord Lin anxiously ran over with his men and hastily saluted. Just as second young Master Do said, a large group of zombies has arrived 2 li outside the city. There are over 10,000 of them. Huifeng, take a team and go up the city gate tower to hold them off, the Crown Prince ordered decisively. Lightning, go back with the Crown Princess and protect the Crown Princess well. Lin Yongyi, pass down the order to gather all the mystic cultivators, body cultivators, superhumans, and so on in the city. Gather everyone who can fight near the city gate tower. The Crown Prince issued several orders before turning to Arbor and saying softly, Jojo, go sleep if you're tired. Everyone, Your Highness, this style of yours. Don't you think it's a bit strange? Arbor waved his small paw and really turned to return to his room. Lightning, along with a few shadow guards, naturally followed him like a shadow. Lin Yongyi and the others were tongue-tied, but they didn't know what to say. Lin Yongyi, you still need to send people to watch over the small plaza. Continue the inspection. Those who have no problems can enter the inner city, and transfer those who can fight to the city gate tower. The Crown Prince was referring to the 1,000-odd people from the tent district who had just entered the city. Among them, there were also many small operations teams that could be put to use. Wenren Ningjing was the first to be unable to continue watching. She bit her lip and interrupted in displeasure, Your Highness ordered everyone to go up the city gate tower, but does your Crown Princess have special rights? That's right, everyone needs to participate in the battle. Your Crown Princess can even go back to her room to sleep. This was too strange. This Crown Prince was so overprotective that he didn't care about the consequences. It was an eye-opener. The woman beside Wenren Ningjing was called Kong Ro Miao. As one of the top 50 disciples of the Celestial Medicine Valley, she originally didn't have the qualifications to stand beside second young Master Do. However, she had a close relationship with the granddaughter of the old Valley Master, Wenren Ningjing, so she had this privilege. Kong Rumio was very obedient and protective of Wenren Ningjing. As long as Wenren Ningjing opened her mouth, Kong Rumio, this brain-dead fan, would be everywhere. At this moment, Kong Rumio crossed her arms and looked provocatively at Arbor who was walking past her. She snorted. The Crown Princess turned to look at Kong Rumio and the others. She frowned and said, Where are the Crown Princess guards? Why didn't anyone subdue her when she provoked the Crown Princess? Huifeng, Prince Emo silently held his forehead. Lightning's group had already appeared the moment the Crown Princess finished speaking. Two black-clothed youths immediately twisted Kong Rumio's arms and forced her to kneel on the ground. Ah! Kong Rumio shrieked. Wenren Ningjing also jumped in fright and reflexively took 2 steps back. What is the crime of offending the Crown Princess? Arbor asked impatiently. Kill. The expressions of the people from the Celestial Medicine Valley abruptly changed. Second young Master Do hastily stepped forward and saluted. Crown Princess, please calm your anger. This humble one's junior sister comes from the Celestial Medicine Valley and hasn't been restrained by the secular world since she was young. Please forgive this humble one, Crown Princess. Chapter 784. So long-winded. Arbor glared at second young Sir Do. As their eldest senior brother, you don't know how to restrain your disciples and have the audacity to offend the Crown Princess. It's simply baffling. Everyone, Among your disciples, how many of them can be of use? Have them step forward. Second Do. Why did he feel that this Crown Princess was a bit adorable? Her manner of speech was straightforward and strange. Those of the Crown Princess's royal guards who have the guts to oppose the zombie army, step forward. Voila! The Hidden Night Pavilion's members and the 100 hidden guards hidden in the shadows all jumped out, their movements especially synchronized. Do you see that? This is the difference. The Crown Princess rolled her eyes at the people from Celestial Medicine Valley. Lin Yongyi and company were unexpectedly speechless. When they turned to look at the Crown Prince, they saw the Crown Prince holding his forehead as he stifled a chuckle. Cough. Huifeng coughed lightly to remind his Crown Prince. Prince Emo walked up with a grin to grasp Arbor's small hand. That's right, Do you see, the crown princess has several hundred subordinates who are willing to risk their lives for her to oppose the zombie army. You don't have anyone, so you naturally have to go yourselves. That's right, not a single one of these Celestial Medicine Valley idiots understood her words. That was exactly what she meant. She had money and people, so why couldn't she first go catch up on sleep to make herself feel better? Why did she have to force herself to endure her unbearably sleepy body to fight the zombies over there? Was she stupid? Only the crown prince could understand her meaning. A bunch of idiots. She couldn't be bothered to waste her breath with them. Jojo, I'll send you back to your room to sleep. His darling must be unbearably sleepy, but even her overbearing appearance was just as adorable. That's right, these insensible things didn't know that his darling was still growing. How could she not properly grow up? The crown prince carried Arbor back to the side room and settled her down before leading the others back to the city gate tower. Half a kilometer away from Bailon City, several prisoner carriages were frantically speeding forward. There were 5 to 6 people imprisoned in each prisoner carriage. There were men, women, old, and young, and all of them were shrieking with terrified expressions. It wasn't horses that were pulling the carriage, but 2 giant hyenas. These hyenas ran much faster than horses, but they were very brave when they ran. The prison carriage kept shaking, causing the people in the cage to retch. In the beginning, there were more than a dozen of these prisoner carriages, but when they fled all the way to Bailon City's entrance, there were only 4 to 5 of them left. The others had already overturned halfway and were savagely devoured by the zombies that were chasing after them. These prisoners still felt like they were in a dream. Originally, they were all locked up in the prison. They didn't know what was going on, but when they opened their eyes, they found themselves on a fleeing prison cart with a large group of zombies following closely behind. They were getting closer and closer to Bailon City's city gate. They cried aloud, and waved their arms vigorously from their cages to the rows of dark figures on the battlements for help. They didn't want to die. They hoped to be locked up in the prison again. Even if they had to eat pig swill every day for several years, it was still better than being inexplicably torn apart and eaten by these zombies. Your Highness. Second young Master Do walked to Mo Yen's side and whispered, I saw it on the way here. These people seem to be the bait for wild beasts. If this Do's guess isn't wrong, someone deliberately lured them to Bailon City. It's the end of the month, so stop hiding and quickly vote. I'll give you more monthly votes tomorrow, moi. Chapter 785. At first, I thought it was extremely strange. Why would someone go to such great lengths to use some prisoners to lure a large number of zombies to Bailon City? Second young Sir Do turned his head and glanced indifferently at Prince Mo. This Do only understood when this Do saw the crown prince for the first time. It turns out that these people were targeting Your Highness the Crown Prince. Prince Mo's icy lips pursed into a thin line as he nodded apathetically. Did Second Do discover anything else? Second Do nodded slightly. Where did these prisoners come from? If this Do's guess isn't wrong, these prisoners should have been transferred out from the Mo Kingdom capital's dungeon. The Supreme Court only imprisons high officials of 3rd rank and above, as well as the king's relatives. Even if these people are imprisoned, no one dares to touch them in the slightest. Second Do analyzed, therefore, this Do guesses that these prisoners were probably transferred out from the Ministry of Justice's dungeon. At this time, the Ministry of Justice is probably already in complete chaos. Second Do's guess wasn't wrong. At this time, the Minister of Justice, Mao Kangfu, was kneeling inside the great king's royal study. He had just reported that a large number of prisoners had escaped from the Ministry of Justice's dungeon, and he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. The great king of the Mo Kingdom only felt his eyelids twitching madly, and he felt like something bad was about to happen. Unfortunately, the people he sent out hadn't returned yet. Someone stole your waist tag and released 100 prisoners without permission. The old king was so angry that he slapped the desk. This is such a big thing, and you didn't realize it until now. What are you doing? Mao Kungfu took off his official hat and held it in his hands as he knelt on the ground with his head bowed. Great King, it is this subject's dereliction of duty, but this subject requests the Great King to give this subject a chance to redeem himself by meritorious service and escort these prisoners back. They've already escaped for so long, how are you going to escort them back? The commander of the royal guards, Hui Feng, led He Tian to the royal study in large strides and knelt on one knee in salute. Greetings to the Great King. Come in. The old Great King hurriedly waved at them. Hui Feng, He Tian, hurry up and bring 2,000 men to assist the Ministry of Justice. Capture all the escaped criminals. Great King. A dark shadow appeared in the Great King's study. He was the closest secret guard to the Great King, who had been sent out to gather information not long ago. How is it? How is it? Tell me quickly. The shadow guard bowed before replying, Your Majesty, the shadow guard is here. I've already sent people to investigate. We discovered that these escapees were all fleeing in the direction of Beilan City. Bastard! The old Great King roared. Hui Feng. Great King, your subordinate hasn't finished yet. The secret guard hurriedly added, Your subordinate has investigated. This group of people has alarmed many zombies within a radius of 50 kilometers. Currently, more than 10,000 zombies have gathered and are chasing after them to Beilan City. What? The old Great King jumped up in shock, as if his but had been roasted by fire. Wasn't Beilan City? Wasn't that where his royal son was? Royal father, royal father. The Great King's son, Mo Jiao, had really come at the right time. He ran into the royal study with great acting and started bawling while hugging the table leg. Royal father. Royal father. This subject heard that sixth royal brother has been surrounded by a large group of zombies in Beilan City. This subject requests royal father's permission to allocate 3,000 elite troops to this subject. This subject wants to personally head to Beilan City to rescue royal brother. Ah, royal father. Chapter 786. Scram. The Great King gave the Great King's son, Mo Jiao, a kick that sent him tumbling to the ground. The tear stains on his face had yet to dry as he looked up at his old father in a daze, unable to comprehend what was going on. The old Great King picked up a ruler in passing and smashed it at Mo Jiao's back. Do you think that father doesn't know that you have a bellyful of cunning plots? Do you think that your father is a dotard? The Great King's son was stupefied. He had come over at the right time to express his attitude and express his excellent moral character of cherishing and protecting his younger brother, yet he still incurred his old father's disdain. If this wasn't called dotard, then what was? Royal father, royal father. The old Great King smacked the ruler twice on Mo Jiao's back. You came to father at this time to show off your cleverness. You even said that you didn't find someone to secretly release those people from the Ministry of Justice's prison. Mo Jiao. What did I do? Don't think that your royal father is dotard. That little scheme of yours? How could we not know? Why do you want to lead troops to Beilan City? Are you there to save your royal brother or to harm him? The Minister of Justice, Mao Kungfu, hurriedly crawled forward and reached out to stop the Great King's rough ruler. Great King, this matter shouldn't have anything to do with the Great King's son. I'm afraid this official's waist token was stolen by the infamous bandit Ding Ting Ding. What? The old Great King turned around with the ruler in hand and stared sharply at Mao Kungfu. Didn't you say it just now? Mao Kungfu was speechless. He had indeed wanted to conceal this matter at first, because how would it be honorable if he revealed it? Ding Ting Ding had sent him a letter stating that he would steal his personal waist token within 24 hours. He had already put up a 360-degree defense without any blind spots. Who would have thought that when the time came, his waist token would disappear without a trace? Sob, sob, sob. He really didn't want to tell the Great King that the waist tag was stolen by Ding Ting Ding, but now that he saw the Great King angrily scolding the Great King's son, if he continued to hide this matter, it would escalate into a conflict between father and son. Father. When the Great King's son heard this, he immediately burst into tears and snot. I am really innocent. This son naturally wants to lead troops to Bailon City to rescue sixth brother. This son can swear to the heavens that this is absolutely not a lie. Did she take him for a fool? Even if he really wanted to find an opportunity to get rid of the Crown Prince, he couldn't possibly lead an army to kill the Crown Prince right under his father's nose. How dare you say you're not an old fool? What a fucking muddle-headed old man. The Great King's son inwardly cursed endlessly. At this moment, he couldn't help but grimace from the pain and anger on his back from being beaten by the ruler. This damned old man. They were both sons, but the difference between the son of the legitimate wife and the son of a concubine was like heaven and earth. Ever since he was young, this old man had cared for the Crown Prince in every possible way, only believing and doting on him. His heart had already deviated to the northwest desert. It was only then that the old Great King coughed awkwardly, knowing that he had wrongly blamed Mo Jiao. He tossed the ruler onto the ground and said resentfully to Gong Chang and beside him, "Why haven't you summoned a physician from the Royal Physician Building to examine the Great King's son's injuries?" Mo Jiao, father knows what you're thinking. The old Great King's lips drooped as he coldly said, "Let us tell you. The Crown Prince simply doesn't care about the things that you're so attached to. This is the most fundamental difference between the two of you." Mao Kungfu broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't expect that the old Great King would actually lecture his eldest son in front of him today. You father and son quarrel with each other on a daily basis, so why don't you do it behind closed doors? As a subject, how could he endure hearing this kind of words? Chapter 787. Hui Feng, He Tian. This subject is here. Immediately bring 2,000 men and head to Bailon City to rescue them. We solemnly obey the Great King's order. The Great King's son, Mo Jiao, failed to act obedient and was beaten up by his old father instead. Suppressing his bellyful of anger, he quietly clenched his fists and left the royal study. The most fundamental difference. The most fundamental difference. They were all sons, but royal father only favored the Crown Prince and didn't favor the other sons. This was the most fundamental difference between them. Royal father simply didn't know that every time he mentioned the Crown Prince, his old eyes seemed to glow with pride. That was a gaze filled with extreme pride for this son of his. He said that the most fundamental difference between them and the Crown Prince was that they were wholeheartedly attached to power and position, while the Crown Prince didn't favor them at all. Ha! By holding the Crown Prince up so high, wasn't he afraid that if the Crown Prince were to fall one day, his body would shatter and his bones would be consigned to eternal damnation? Why was it that the Crown Prince was good in every way, while his other sons were as worthless as dog shit? Mo Jiao heavily punched the corridor pillar and left in a huff. Just as he walked out of the Great King's palace, he saw the Great King's second consort, Shu Quan, standing on the side of the road with a slight smile, waiting for him to come out under the moonlight. The Great King's son, Mo Jiao's heart eased slightly, and he felt a bit better. With a smile on his face, he went up to support the Great King's second consort's hand and asked, "King Consort, why have you come?" This concubine couldn't feel at ease after waiting for his eldest highness to return for a long time, so this concubine simply came to the king's palace's entrance to wait for his highness. Sigh. The Great King's son, Mo Jiao, sighed and said, "King Consort, you were right. As expected, royal father wasn't willing to delegate military authority to me. He is very wary of me in his heart. I don't know if it's because second brother's previous matter has angered the Great King's nerves. I think that other than sixth brother, he doesn't trust anyone else right now." The Great King's second consort hastily stretched out her hand and secretly tugged at the Great King's son's sleeve. How could such words be spouted so casually? They had just left the king's palace and were surrounded by the great king and queen's spies. Her husband was too reckless. The great king's consort sighed. She tidied her hair and went up on her tiptoes to fix the great king's collar. "Your Highness, your face looks a bit pale. What's wrong?" The great king's son swallowed his anger. He supported the great king's wife and said, "We'll talk about it when we get back." "All right." The great king's concubine nodded with a smile. She glanced at a dark corner from the corner of her eyes and saw a slender shadow flash by. A glint flashed across her eyes. Was it Queen Zhao's informant, Consort Zhang's, or another concubine's? It seemed that the news of her husband being reprimanded in the imperial study today would soon spread throughout the imperial court. The great king's son's estate wouldn't necessarily be any better off than the second prince's estate. Shu Quan sighed. She had already told him not to enter the palace at this time, but how could her husband listen to other people's advice? Sai thought he had wasted a great opportunity to sell a favor to the crown prince. If her husband had listened to her advice and secretly dispatched people to Bailon City to rescue his royal brother. After Bailon City's crisis had been resolved, he could then quietly leak the news and divulge this matter to the great king and the crown prince. How perfect would that be? Yet this boorish fellow only had eyes for that bit of military authority in the south camp and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to win it over. How could the great king be willing to let him have his way? Just as the great king and his wife left the king's palace, someone went to the queen's central palace to pass on a message. Chapter 788. Sitting in front of the dressing mirror, Queen Zhao sneered, "My son just got caught up in Bailon City's crisis, yet someone immediately couldn't sit still. Could it be that they think there's no one left in our Zhao family?" Earlier, the queen had swiftly summoned her younger brother, Zhao Sheng, into the palace. At this moment, Zhao Sheng should have already brought his two sons to Bailon City to rescue the king. Green Mammy, who was gently massaging Her Majesty the Queen's shoulders, couldn't help but interject, "Isn't that so? Your Majesty doesn't need to worry. His Highness the Crown Prince is very capable, so how could such a small matter stump him? On the other hand, that Crown Princess." Green Mammy paused, and Hexiang, who had just entered with a cup of tea, walked to the Queen's side with light steps. She docilely placed the teacup in front of the Queen and silently stood behind her. Queen Zhao's brows creased slightly. Whenever Green Mammy talked about her daughter-in-law, she would have a headache, and that stoic face would pop up in her mind for no reason. Green Mammy glanced at the Queen out of the corner of her eye, and her lips curled into a secret smile as she continued, "This old servant heard that the Crown Princess's child is very playful. The reason why the Crown Prince left for Bailon City without saying goodbye this time might be because the Crown Princess had whispered something into the Crown Prince's ear." Queen Zhao pursed her lips in displeasure. Last time, because the Crown Prince had accompanied that lass from the Qiao family back to her parental home, he had encountered an assassination attempt on the way back. This time, it was also because of that lass's willful and rash actions that the Crown Prince was in danger. Moreover, no matter how she looked at that stoic face, she just couldn't bring herself to like it. When she recalled how Consort Cheng had brought her daughters-in-law over to pay respects to her 2 days ago, she became even more envious of other families' daughters-in-law. That eldest lass of the Shu family, Shu Quan, had been well-educated and well-mannered since childhood, and she had also watched her grow up. Now that she had a son and 2 daughters, her belly was quite capable. Secondary Consort Zhang, who was by the great king's son's side, also looked reasonable and had a concubine's daughter. Vice Consort Wu, who had been taken in less than half a year ago, was the concubine's daughter Wu Xiaoli, who was ranked second in the Wu family. When she came to pay her respects, she was already pregnant. Perhaps she was about to give birth to Consort Cheng's 5th grandson. This made Queen Zhao's eyes burn with envy. Compared to her 2 disappointing sons, Queen Zhao sighed repeatedly. Her youngest son was already 13 years old. He was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins. He was always out in the wild and was nowhere to be seen. The big one was even more ridiculous. In his early 20s, he had never been close to women. Oh, he was close now. But the one closest to him was a little stoic. As the crown prince, he had no children. Wasn't this just throwing his weakness to the enemy? It was no wonder that the imperial censors were so long-winded. Queen Zhao set down the ivory finer in annoyance and cast a sidelong glance at Green Mammy. Between Commandery Princess En and the future crown princess, who do you think is more suitable for His Highness? It's just that the crown princess is rather young and has grown up among the common folk since she was young, so her personality is a bit more casual. Elderly nanny Huaxian, who had lifted the curtain and walked to the queen's side with a chuckle. Huaxian very naturally took the finer that the queen had placed in front of the dressing mirror and gently combed the queen's hair. Commandery Princess En has been raised by Her Majesty the Queen Dowager since she was young, so there's naturally nothing to say about her etiquette. However, oh my, just say what you want to say. The queen cast a glance at elderly nanny Huaxuan's hesitant expression and couldn't resist urging, there aren't any outsiders here, so what can't you say? Yes. Then this old servant will speak frankly. Chapter 789. After all, Commandery Princess En's parents died when she was young. Speaking of which, she is also a person with a bitter fate. Elderly nanny Huaxian docilely combed Her Majesty the Queen's long hair as she commented softly, if it weren't for Her Majesty the Queen Dowager taking pity on her as the descendant of a martyr and conferring the title of Commandery Princess on her behalf, she wouldn't have been able to survive this long. At this time, her days in the Marquis of An's estate are probably not easy. Although her uncle was bestowed the title of Marquis of and by His Majesty's grace. However, although the Marquis of An's estate has many heirs, they are all good-for-nothings. Queen Zhao nodded. On the other hand, Green Mammy pouted indignantly when the two people weren't paying attention. Now that you mention it, that's true. En is also not a very auspicious person. How could she be worthy of her outstanding son? Queen Zhao was pondering that her son was not young anymore, yet he was still childless. Seeing how small that little stoic was, she reckoned that her son would need to raise her for another 2 years before they could consummate their marriage. Could it be that she had to let her precious son watch over her for these 2 years? How could she do that? She couldn't bear to. Moreover, she desperately wanted to hold a grandchild. Regardless of whether it was a legitimate grandchild or a concubine's grandchild, it couldn't be better if she could give her a grandchild to hold. As a result, Queen Zhao secretly racked her brains to take in 2 secondary consorts for her precious son. Look at how Consort Chang's son already had 2 secondary consorts. Her own son was the crown prince of the Great Mo Kingdom, second only to the king, so why couldn't he have a secondary consort? Prince Mo thought that his mother had already stopped, but he didn't expect that this pig of a teammate would continue to secretly drag on. Behind his legs. The eldest miss of the Mu family's eldest branch, Mu Qianqian, is also not bad. Her small face is snow white and her smile is also sweet. Unlike that expressionless stoic face. Her Majesty the Queen muttered to herself, it's just that she didn't conform to etiquette at the palace banquet last time. I'll just have to teach her the rules in the future. En is also not bad. The eminent monk of the Honghai Temple had even read her fortune, saying that she would have many children and many blessings. Although she didn't seem to have a good life in the first half of her life, she might be a good wife who could bring good fortune to her husband. With her status as a concubine, it wouldn't be a loss of face to the Empress Dowager. The more Queen Zhao spoke, the more spirited she became. Shu family's 4th young lady, Shu Hui, is 18 this year. The last time I saw her, she was as pretty as a flower bud. The 2 girls from the Dou family were also not bad. They were the famous twin sisters in the capital. The one from the Duan clan is not bad, and the one from the Qin clan. Oh my empress. Old Nanny Huaxian put down the fine-toothed comb and looked at the queen helplessly. Even if those girls you mentioned were as beautiful as fairies, it's useless. Your Highness doesn't like any of them. The queen immediately snorted like a deflated balloon. Why is my son so stubborn? That little stoic was so tiny, what exactly was so good about her? Your Highness, you've seen how much His Highness likes the crown princess. Huaxian whispered into the queen's ear, her eyes flickering with the wisdom of an old nanny. We can't cause a rift with His Highness because of this. The affection between mother and son. The green mammy still wanted to follow, but she had no choice but to halt her steps after Huaxian cast her a cold glance from the corner of her eye. Moreover, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager's heart aches for that commandery Princess Yihan. Do you think it's a good idea to place her beside the Crown Prince? His Highness and Commandery Princess Yihan have known each other since they were young. There hasn't been much between them for so many years, yet you insist on getting involved with them. Won't His Highness be disgusted? Chapter 790. Nonsense. Queen Zhao retorted indignantly, I see that child Yihan's eyes light up every time she sees our son, and she can't shift her gaze away. How can you say that it's nothing? Oh my queen consort. When your family's His Highness goes out, he looks like a jade tree facing the wind. Which girl's eyes don't shine when they see him? Huaxian said with her mouth twitching. That stoic face doesn't light up. Speaking of this, the queen got angry. She just felt that that little stoic didn't value her precious son enough. She kept a stoic face in front of her husband all day long, and her gaze never lingered on her son. She treated her son like a radish instead of a vegetable. It was simply infuriating. Huaxian, after all this, it was just that the mother-in-law felt that her daughter-in-law didn't value her son enough. Elderly Nanny Huaxian could completely understand Queen Zhao's mentality. Indeed, such an outstanding person like His Highness would attract pursuers wherever he went. The Crown Princess's attitude was improper. But the Crown Princess was still young. Perhaps she hadn't been enlightened yet. Your Majesty, this old servant advises you not to meddle in the young couple's affairs. Don't even think about that secondary consort selection. Look at how much His Highness cherishes your stoic-faced daughter-in-law. Queen Zhao abruptly glared at elderly Nanny Huaxian. Hexiang, who was following beside her, Nanny, why did you also call her stoic-faced? This old servant's meaning is. If you go and start some secondary consort selection, His Highness definitely won't like it. When the time comes and he kicks up a fuss with you, the one who will lose face is still you. Elderly Nanny Huaxian coughed twice as she explained. Truly, a grown son can't be controlled by his mother. Queen Zhao went to sleep in a huff. Wasn't she just feeling sorry for her precious son? Her son actually didn't appreciate it. Hexiang secretly pursed her lips into a smile and quickly served Queen Zhao to rest. After a good night's sleep in arbor, the first glimmer of dawn had already appeared when she opened her eyes. She couldn't help but sigh when she touched her lower body. No wonder she couldn't open her eyes at night and was unbearably exhausted. It turned out that her first period since her rebirth had come. She had already prepared a clean cotton cloth a while ago, so she was not caught off guard this time. However, his body was still very tired, and his head was still a little dizzy. The lower part of his body was wet, and it was not very comfortable. He got up and fiddled around for a while, then put on a clean cotton cloth and changed his clothes. Murmurs came from outside the door. Arbor quickly ran to the door, put his hand on the door, and muttered with a red face, "You're not allowed to come in." "Jojo, you're awake." Mo Yen was surprised when she was stopped from opening the door. "What's wrong?" "It's okay, Arbor still didn't let go of the door and shouted, "Ask Xiao Yao to come in." "You forgot that Xiao Yao stayed in the Mo Kingdom capital and didn't come with us." Mo Lien was at a loss, unable to understand what was going on with her little miss. Then call any maid in." After saying that, Arbor thought again. Right now, the maids and guards were probably busy elsewhere, so she said dejectedly, forget it. I'll do it myself." Her small hand moved past the door. Just as she turned around, she heard a soft sound from behind the door. Prince Mo had already pushed open the door. "Jojo." Mo Lien saw her complexion at a glance. "Why is your face so pale?" "Jojo, are you not feeling well?" He picked her up and walked to the bed. "Do you want to sleep a while more?" Arbor was so angry that she wanted to bite him. She covered his eyes with one hand and shouted, "You're not allowed to look, not allowed to look." Chapter 791. Her bed hadn't been properly tidied up yet. She was about to die from embarrassment. Hateful brat. Hateful brat, hateful brat. Even though he wasn't allowed to look, the Crown Prince's sharp gaze still caught sight of it. He was momentarily dazed as he lowered his head to look at his little lady. "It's fine, Jojo. Don't be scared. I'll go find an old nanny to teach you." Arbor bit his chin, "Hateful brat. You're not allowed to find anyone. Bring me clean bed sheets and blankets from the cabinet." A moment later, the Crown Prince helped the little lady clean the bed. He foolishly looked at the little lady who was lying on the bed and turning her head away from him. "Jojo, do you want to eat something? I'll go prepare it for you." "How's the situation outside?" Arbor expressionlessly asked with his back facing a certain someone. "Oh, the city is under siege." "How can you be so calm when you're under siege?" "You." Arbor turned to glare at him in bewilderment. "Is the city really under siege?" MHM, it's under siege. There are a lot of zombies blocking Bailon City's city gate. There are many more zombies than the ones we encountered in Qinghe Town back then." Arbor really wanted to whip something and beat this joker to death. "Your tone is so relaxed. Do you look like you're under siege and in dire straits? Then what should we do?" "It's fine. Lin Yongyi is here." Mo Lien's words made Arbor roll his eyes in exasperation. "Are you sure City Lord Lin isn't secretly crying in a corner right now?" "Jojo, wait a moment. I'll cook some porridge for you. Drink some before you sleep." Mo Lien hurried out after saying that. Arbor didn't even have time to call out to him. After a while, Xiao Mu was still in a daze when she felt Mo Lien pick her up. His body was very warm, causing her originally icy limbs to involuntarily crawl over on their own accord. She hugged his waist and buried her small face in his embrace as she nuzzled against him. He stroked her forehead with his hand and fed her some porridge before stuffing a warm hand warmer into her arms. He softly muttered a few words into her ear, but Arbor didn't hear him clearly and didn't know when he left. When she woke up, she felt much more refreshed. She raised her hand to touch the hand warmer on her stomach. It was still warm, so Mo Lien reckoned that he had changed the charcoal pies midway. She got out of bed, changed her clothes, opened the door, took a look. The entire city lord's estate was silent. Lightning's to princesses to his majesty's teat. His highness has instructed that you should drink some hot porridge after you wake up. Please wait a moment. Xiao Mu was also a bit hungry. Mo Lien had fed her more than half a bowl of porridge in the morning, so her stomach felt a bit empty right now. They're all at the city gate tower. A portion of the injured in the city have mutated. His Majesty has brought some people to patrol the inner city. Lightning shook her head and said, City Lord Lin has ordered people to carry out the city defense cannons. The current situation is still under control. Little Master, His Majesty said that if you feel unwell, you should rest a bit more. I'm fine. Arbor found a hair band and casually tied her long hair. Let's go out and take a look. Relaxing the meridians and moving around was also beneficial to one's health. Let's go to the city gate tower. She wanted to see if the entire Bailon city was really completely surrounded by zombies. Chapter 792. When Arbor appeared at the foot of the city gate tower in high spirits, she immediately received many silent looks mixed with quite a few secret eye rolls. Kong Rumio was currently feeding medicine to a young mystic cultivator who had practically exhausted all of his mystic energy. When she looked up, she saw that Crown Princess leisurely walking over as if she was taking a stroll in her own backyard. Kong Rumio's face immediately darkened, and she was furious. Other people were risking their lives to fight the zombies on the city gate tower, yet this Crown Princess slept all the way until the afternoon and came to patrol while carrying a hand warmer. They had been fighting the zombies for an entire day and night. The Crown Princess's leisurely appearance was too deserving of a beating. Wenren Ningjing creased her brows and gently tugged at Kong Rumio. It couldn't be helped. The Crown Prince covered the sky with one hand in Bailon City and wanted to protect his dainty little wife with all his might. Even if other people found him an eyesore, they couldn't say anything. Arbor climbed up the city gate tower and pattered over to the city wall to take a look. His small mouth immediately formed an O shape. So many zombies. When City Lord Lin turned around and saw this Crown Princess the Great, he almost knelt down. He wiped his sweat and said, "Crown Princess, why have you come? The wind on the city gate tower is strong. How about you go down first?" When Wenren Ningjing saw the city lord's fawning face, she promptly turned her face away, unable to continue watching. This city lord Lin normally looked like a man, but in front of the Crown Princess, he became a wretch, which made her a bit angry. Wenren Ningjing reached out and helped several weak mystic cultivators to the side. At times like this, mystic cultivators' long-range attacks could thoroughly display their strengths. There were about 500 mystic cultivators gathered in the city, and they went into battle one after another, bombarding the densely packed zombies below the city wall. Arbor stood next to the defensive wall and looked down with rapt attention. Sure enough, an army of over 10,000 zombies was climbing the wall bravely. Severed limbs filled the gaps in the city walls, and a long string of corpse puppets hung from the city gates. Everyone was pushing and shoving. Under City Lord Lin's command, the cannons fired and landed in the middle of the zombie horde, immediately blasting a dozen or so zombies into pieces. Don't you find it strange? After fighting for a day and a night, why hasn't the number of corpse puppets decreased? 10,000 corpse puppets, if they fought desperately, there would be a time when they would be killed. Arbor's words stunned Lin Yongyi. His face stiffened as he turned to look at the young Crown Princess. He had never thought of this question before. Could it be that this siege was premeditated by someone who had secretly transported large batches of zombies into Bailon City in an unending stream? Arbor thought more than City Lord Lin. Inexplicably, she thought of the underground village. Those neurotic demonic cultivators seemed to take pleasure in killing the corpse puppets. Could it be that the underground village wasn't just a base for cultivating demonic cultivators? What is its real underground operation? Raising zombies? Arbor's chilly eyes narrowed, and she turned around to walk down the city gate tower. Kong Rumio sneered, "Do you really think this is your own back garden, just going through the motions and patrolling?" Arbor turned a deaf ear to this mocking voice. She didn't have time to deal with these idiots right now. She had to find the Crown Prince as soon as possible and inform him of her suspicions. None of these people understood her, so she couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on them. After descending the city gate tower, she heard cries of alarm coming from a small plaza nearby. "It's Physician Feng. Be careful. Physician Feng has mutated." Ah. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.